Welcome back, everyone. Remember to hit like, hit share. Myself and Scotty Lopez are about to take you back down the rabbit hole. Who do we have here today? We have Guy, Ricky, ZX81, the Tree Mistress, John, Tiffany, Bill, Preacher, Jules, Brian, some dick called Kev Baker. We've got Black Templar. We also have going on up there. Ooh, too many people. We've got Joan. So many filing in right now for the woo. Who else is kicking about? La Curosia or La Curiosa? Yeah, nice name. Let's see.
Yes, I need to fire up mine.
I've just fired mine up. We're good to go. But folks, thanks a lot for tuning in today. We had an amazing stream earlier on. I know you shouldn't brag about your own streams, but with the audience and everything else as well, a member-only chat stream. We got 250 odd people in at one time. And it was amazing. We got into some really good stories. And I was talking to Scott beforehand about some of the stuff we'd got into on the show, i.e. the strange, weird stuff going on above Washington, above London, the sonic booms, all that stuff. But I was also saying to Scott as well, and we finished up the last show by talking about this, and I want to just touch on it briefly, and we're not going to spend too much time on this, because it's speculation at best. But myself and Scott, we were able to have a little bit of a laugh with this because we were kind of trying to dream up what the kind of communication would have been if like we were or are being led to believe there are suggestions, there's rumors, and I don't really typically go trusting sources on WhatsApp, but you know, there is a story out there that perhaps the monarch, yes, the queen herself, has fallen. And you know, Scotty, we've had like films that White House Down and or things like that, and we were having a bit of a laugh with that. Like, what would the communication be from the palace? What would they say? I think my first one was Reptile Down. You know, what was your first go?
Lizard down. Repeat. Lizard down. Code green. Code green.
Yeah, I think so. You could have Lizard 1 down because there are many in that place, you know.
Lizard 1 down. Yeah, Lizard 1 down.
So what do you think, Scott? I'll ask you. I mean, come on. It's a thing going about. I'm not even going to show it because we showed it earlier on, but it's a thing. Somebody that claims they're in the military, been told to get their number 1 dress ready. And as somebody in the military, Scott, that night Diana didn't make it home from the place she was going to in that car. I was in the army, and I remember how it went down because we were told, get your uniform ready. So listen, the stuff that the actual like context of it, yeah, cool, but it's WhatsApp. And nowadays, I mean, basically, how many times you've had a fake death posted online, it's basically a barometer of how famous you are, right? Because you're not famous until you've had at least 2 hoax deaths at one, you know, at various stages. Everyone's died on the internet at least twice if they're famous, right?
Yeah, this is, you know, this goes to, I mean...
But could the sonic boom then last night, like I was speculating, folks, and having freedom to create a little bit of comedy, stretch it. I'm not saying it's anywhere near the truth, but the sonic boom, maybe a solitary cannonball been fired from the turret of the palace, Scotty, as they all wept as the lizard passed away. Just that one cannonball to open up a portal so that she could go back to Beelzebub himself. I don't know, maybe, you know, who knows?
I don't know. I mean, if she did, say, suddenly pass in her sleep or something like that, Kev, You would think that probably they would hold off on telling everybody right away. Like they would have to get their ducks in a row first. You know what I mean? And not
Allegedly,
just
yeah, allegedly with the Queen Mum, that's what happened, dude. That is what happened, you know, because there are. This sounds mad in the year 2019, but there'll be people lose their shit when it's announced that this, when, and I don't wish it on anyone, folks. Don't get me wrong. I don't even wish it on her. I'm not stooping to that level, but you can imagine, Scotty. There's going to be a protocol. I mean, she can't go to the toilet without protocols being put in place, right? You know what I'm saying?
exactly, and you know that they have some kind of a protocol in place in case they do find her unresponsive or something. Like they go to wake her up in the morning and she's not getting up, right? And then there was like probably a whole sort of checklist of things that they need to do first before they prepare the public or inform the public of what happened. So I mean, it does stand to reason that there would be a time gap, right? They wouldn't just immediately like find her unresponsive and then just go out and tell everybody, well, we just found her.
I bet you Andrew wishes he could. I bet you Andrew wishes he could throw that one out to the reporters. You know, just saying, that would be a good story to knock him off the headlines, right?
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I think we've been through this a couple times, right? Where she supposedly was,
Yeah.
and then she ends up, but
But one of these times it's got to be true, right? Or else it really is.
That being said, I mean, she's not exactly young. She's been around for quite a while, and the time is ticking. And it will definitely be, I would say, within the next 5 years or so. I mean, 10's given it a stretch unless they, she goes to Ambrosia or something.
What age is she?
She's in her 90s.
Is she?
Got to be in her 90s. Look it up. I mean,
well, the Royal Central is let's go to the. Hang on, Scott. We should have some. Do we have some trumpets or something? We can get on the new order. We need some dramatic music here. I've got a telegram coming right to the Kev Baker show from the palace right now. A secret insider that's got a website on the internet is giving me a secret link. It's not really, but we're gonna kind of hype it up here. Where is my good music, Scott? Oh, here it is. Is it? Let me see. That's a dramatic, yes? No? We need the new order.
At the top. It's at the top, right there. You just scrolled past it. Go down. Yeah, keep going down.
Don't know, dude.
I don't know. Where did it go?
Where did it go?
I saw it for a second. I
can't believe it.
Go up some more.
There it is.
There it is.
You see, folks, you see, after that brilliant start, it all goes back to normal. But yes, live in from the palace right now. Let me just read the scroll. Hang on now. Scrolling it out, Scott. I can't get it on camera because it'll self-destruct. James Bond, the woman James Bond, just delivered it to the door right now. So what I'll do is I can bring it on to don't tell anyone, folks, okay? If I show you this on the internet, don't tell anyone, right? Super secret. Here we go. Ready? Boom. Shh, don't tell anyone. Oh, where's our chat room gone? We can fix that in a moment, but look at this. The royalcentral.co.uk. It's got a crown for a badge. I'm thinking this might know what they're talking about. By Charlie Proctor. Vicious rumours of the Queen's death circulate on social media. But Scott...
Vicious, Kev.
Isn't this exactly what they would do to send a couple of internet sleuths like us off the trail, sir? Wouldn't they just throw something out like this expecting us to swallow it? The groom of the lies, sir. we should try and find the groom of the stool. See when he last done his grooming of stools? Is that what you call it? Oh, the mind boggles. King Sweet wants that job, I heard. But yeah, let's go and breaking off the royal press right now. Yes, vicious rumours claiming that old Queen Elizard Breath died on Sunday morning are being shared on social media, despite the monarch being alive and well and enjoying living off the fortunes pillaged from countries. I mean, tens of thousands of people have been flooding social media with rumours that Her Majesty has passed away. Getting ready to cry here, Scott. I might shed a tear here, dude. Don't know if I can laugh. In this latest fake news pandemic, what is wrong with you people? What's wrong with you? Damn, dude. An anonymous account claimed that the 93-year-old, 93, dude.
I do shoot
Dang.
in the 90s.
Do you
And she
think
had to
her and
be.
do you think her and Philip are still having a bit of chicken brown cow? Surely,
Ooh.
surely not. Surely not.
That is something I do not want to. I don't want that mental image in my
No,
head, Kev.
I'm picturing traffic cones or anything right now. So, with a media blackout being in place until Monday morning, in actual fact, Her Majesty is enjoying a good night's sleep in anticipation of her next big engagement on Tuesday, where she'll host President Trump and the other leaders at Buckingham Palace for a NATO reception. Didn't that sound really creepy, in actual fact? It almost sounds like he was standing at the foot of her bed like a shadow man, Scott.
Yeah, like the person writing the story is like, I am sitting here watching her right now, sleep in her bed. Do you think Prince Andrew whispers in her ear?
Who only knows at this point, dude? What is going on with that place? It's like, it's freaky at the best of times, right?
He's like, I want to come back as a virus.
Well, see, this is what I was saying earlier on, though, right? And we're laughing, we're joking, I get that. I don't think it's true. I never did, right? But at one point it could be. So it could be the boy that cried queen, boy that cried royal. Boys that cry queen nowadays, they get put on drugs for that. It's another story altogether. Boy who cried wolf. We'll just stick with the tried and tested, Scott. We don't want to offend anyone. And if you identify as a wolf, I'm sorry, but you know it's a well common phrase. I'm not changing it. One of these times it will be right. It really will. But although there's protocols, Scott, will it really break on WhatsApp? As good a social media app as it is, owned by Facebook, remember? I don't know, dude.
Well, you've got to think that probably everybody who works at the Royal Palace, like all of the staff and all of the people there, I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of protocols and rules in place about them using social media, and I'm sure they're all tracked. Like,
do you want to hear my conspiracy? If I was to conspiracize this, right, I would think that maybe the outrage or the fake outrage and the fake reaction to this leak online, some of the royal family maybe found out via social media that perhaps that the head of the family had passed away. That's shocking. It's caused people much distress, Scott. And so to that end, like a D notice in the UK, we've got things called D notices here where you can't report on things. They literally tell you can't report on it. And if you do, you can go to jail. That's a free press in the UK, right? So, Scott, imagine, you know, what could they say then to social media companies, nothing about the royal family can be posted. And in turn, what would that do for another story about another royal right now if you can't go posting stories because it's causing harm? All of these lies, all of lies after lies, the Queen passing away, everything that everybody's saying about Prince Randy Andy, all of it's causing so much distress to the younger royals who are just going to school, and all of it needs to stop right now. Upload filters onto anything, and anything about them is gone.
And the only information or news you get about the royals have to come from an authoritative source.
Yeah, the BBC, because they're dead neutral and get their money from like a licensing thing that goes through the government via the Queen. Dead weird how that works.
It is an interesting angle to look at, Kev. I do like your conspiratorial view on that.
And like I say, Scott, it's entirely speculation that exists
Yeah.
only in my head. I don't think that
But
at all, but
I wouldn't put it past them. That's the thing. That sounds like something they would do, right? So, you've had this big embarrassment that has occurred with old Andrew, right? The botched BBC interview and everything
that
coming out about him.
that
And
BBC interview.
yes, that BBC interview. And so you all of a sudden get this bit of fake news thrown out about the queen, and like you said, oh, that caused a lot of distress. People actually thought she died, and
And if people
blah
think
blah
no, if
blah
people
blah.
think no, people wouldn't react that way. Think about any time you see any of these Catholic priests being caught for doing things they shouldn't be doing, and you look at people that are in their diocese or people that know them, and they'll stand there and they'll staunchly defend them blindly, even though it's come out with evidence and court cases. But they look up to them so much they can see no wrong. The Queen is even above that level to some people, folks.
I was about to say. I mean, look at the blind sort of allegiance people have to the royals.
Fawning adulation. That's what she
Yes,
receives.
yeah, fawning adulation. You're right. I mean, just look at the absolute frenzy that takes place whenever one of them gives birth to a child or whenever they get married. It's an absolute media frenzy that is wall-to-wall coverage, and people are out there just you know what I equate that to almost the kind of just mindless sort of worship of the royals when people are out there remind me a lot of the people that are out there in North Korea. It's the same thing, right? People, a lot of people are, they
You're
look
bang
at
on,
North
by
Korea
the
and they're
way.
like,
Yep.
yeah, they're like, look at these brainwashed people out there, cheering for Kim Jong Un, and they're being forced to do this, and yeah, in a way, I mean, they're brainwashed to do that, just as the people in the UK have been brainwashed.
How's that any different than one of these
Yeah,
parades you see in North Korea?
yeah, just like they've been brainwashed to worship their royals, to hold them to some godlike standard to where you're right. I mean,
That's people waiting to see a family, a German family, who hijacked our our crown, because they're actually called the Saxe-Gotha-Coburgs. Don't believe me? Go and Google it. They adopted the name the House of Windsor, stole that house, took taxes off of everyone in the land, and look at people crushing themselves to death to go and see them for 2 minutes while they stand and scratch their balls and fart up on the balcony and couldn't care two monkeys about the people outside their lad. Do we have to stand here? Oh, not another flyover. Just get on with it, Charles. Just get on with it.
And when the Queen does finally kick the bucket, what's going to be the difference between the people out there crying, and mourning and weeping over her, than the North Koreans that were out there crying, weeping, and mourning over Kim Jong-il whenever he...
It's actually not much of a difference when you start to look between the two, actually. It's very similar.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
really,
a bit more regimented. I get that, okay? I get it. But it is comparable. It truly is. The flags, the pageantry.
You know what it's called? You know what it's called? There's a term for this, people. It's called a cult of personality. And the royals have totally built a cult of personality around everyone in the royal family, right? And you know what I wonder? How many of these people that I'm going to call them royalists instead of loyalists.
Yeah.
These royalists, I wonder how many of them are out there still defending Andrew just because he's a royal.
Well, they won't defend them I would imagine they just don't talk about it.
Yeah, there you go. They just bury their head in the sand. They act like it doesn't even exist.
Yes. Much like you've seen with the example I gave with the Catholic Church and the parishioners and everything. They don't see it. They can't see it. I was such a nice guy, done so many things for the community. And like I say, at the same time, the same dude that somebody's talking about is getting taken away in a prison van, found guilty with evidence, a jury of his peers, locked up, convicted, banged to rights. But no, people that went to that church, no, I can't believe it. He was such a great guy. I don't know. He wasn't that bad.
They just move on and they memory hole it like it never happened.
Yep.
And so it is interesting. And like I said, I see so many parallels between that. Every time, when the royals have, and what really, really chaps my ass is when American media
chaps your ass. I love it.
It really chaps my ass whenever you see American media and Americans fawning over British royalty. That right there.
That must be like a kick in the stones to somebody that knows the American history. That must be like a kick in the stones.
You want to talk about seething anger and hatred that begins to bubble up, like when we had the most recent stupid ass wedding
Harry and Meghan.
Yeah,
you've married into the family, dude. There's American now. I mean, she's like an American. You are in the royal family. Come on.
Traitor, effing traitor.
At least in Scotland, at least in Scotland, they had to steal our women. Your women are throwing themselves at princes. What's going on, Scott? Oh, did that trigger Scott? Surely not. Before we get to the woo. Dang, dude.
They can have her. They can have her. We disown her. Anyways, look. Whenever I see American media and Americans engaging in this royal worship, that right there just completely sets me off. And you think my distaste and disdain for the royals is bad, you need to speak to my mom. She's always had I think it's a genetic memory. I honestly do. I think it's a genetic memory because even when I was like little, like for as long as I can remember from being a little kid, my mom always had this like seething hatred of the royals. And I think it's the Scottish in her, man. I really do. I think it's the Scottish blood in her. Like she has this genetic memory of like oppression that her ancestors had inflicted, or that was inflicted on her ancestors.
It's like a hatred that is on a par with no other. It's a rabid, seething, almost as if they're still doing today the kind of things that built up this animosity back in the day. And for people who don't know, just like in Braveheart, go and watch that. There's a lot of stuff in there you can learn. A lot of stuff made up for the story as well. I get that. And I get it. An Australian playing the most famous Scotsman. I know. But beside that, you see one scene where the guy comes in, the English come in, and basically there's been a wedding, and what they would do is they would take the bride for the night. They would take the bride back to the castle. Brown chicken, brown cow. You don't need the graphics. That's what the way they used to treat us up here, literally, Scott. You know what I mean? And that hatred ain't going anywhere, dude. You still go up.
That's what I'm saying.
The further north you go, as you go into the Highlands, my mum right now, she'll be sitting, her blood will be boiling, her blood pressure will be going up. The thought of those characters, dude. It's enough to just,
It's the same with my mom. Every time they're mentioned, every time she sees them,
It's an instinctual
it
thing. It was a
literally
survival.
triggers this
But you
instant.
think about it, Scott, at one point, it was like the difference between survival or not. If they found you, if they were in the wrong mood. That would be the difference between you making it home that night to your squalor that they sometimes let you live in. Dude, what the heck,
That's what
man?
I'm saying.
And again,
And so
it's just,
obviously,
but think about it, Scott. Who are these people? They've got 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes.
exactly.
And most of them, I mean, they're just the same as us, is my point, folks. They're exactly the same as us, but we've created this illusion where they're different. And I get that they have that blood thing going on. And if I was being totally honest, I do think they are different. Even if it's just on a psychological level, I go further. I think it's something genetic, but that's another story. But they are different from us. But yet, at the same time, they hold so much power, Scott, and they're just nothing different from us.
Exactly. That's
Crazy.
what my mom. That's what my mom has always told me ever since I was little. You know, she's like, they're no different than us. You know, I mean, the other.
My mum
I don't know.
My mum messaged, yes, indeed. She'll be sitting there.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, she'll be getting the claymore sharpened. Frank will be getting woke up. Frank, go and get some Englishmen.
Or are they different from us? Yeah. Is there that reptilian factor? That blah, blah, blah.
I honestly do think so. And me and
That
Scott,
weird-
we always have a laugh and a joke with the blah, 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 the reptilian thing. But again, that's our kind of coping mechanism again as well, and our way of putting it across to you that there's something different about these people, literally genetically.
Yeah, there's something going on with the bloodlines, or they wouldn't be so
I think that's why.
so obsessed about it.
Let's
you
go.
know?
I called the show, let's go back down the rabbit hole. The royal rabbit hole is where we started, but that can offshoot here, there, everywhere into genetics.
Yeah.
So we've hit genetics, we've hit bloodlines, and there's big families that are powerful. We don't have to go full, Fritz Springmeier, and well, we do though, because these are the bloodlines that run the planet. You see, some conspiracies are real, Scott.
It's the bloodlines of the Illuminati.
And we need Joe here, because Joe would say this was where the giants came in, and the Nephilim, they had relations.
And
They
then
did
you look
have sexual
into.
relations, Scott. They did have sexual relations.
I did not have sexual relations with that reptile.
No, just a witch on a nightly basis. Don't believe me?
I mean,
Introduce Chelsea. Right, but no.
then,
but yeah, this is a thing. Right? And then let me go serious for a moment. Right? Bloodlines, genetic markers, something that makes them different from us in one way or other. Ancestral DNA, the junk stuff. The stuff that leads to instinctual and ancestral memories. What if, Scott? That's the big push behind companies like 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, because we often go back to the guide stones, my friend. And maybe, just maybe, they're trying to identify that 500 million, not by our personality, not by what skills we have, but what genetics we have, Scott.
Yep, I think there's something to that. I sit here and I always think about why all of a sudden is there this push for people to have people go out and have their DNA tested to find out their lineage and look at all of these genetic traits. And this also ties in with, like, I would say the Mormon ancestry database as well, because they're very obsessed with bloodlines and lineage and all kinds of things like that. But there definitely is this push for people to take these DNA tests, and once you take that test, your DNA is in the hands of some corporation, and who's controlling that corporation?
Well, Scott, think about 23andMe. I was just showing some of the various dragon symbology from around the world. We've got Welsh viewers. There's the Welsh dragon there. Big shout out to Susie, Half Q, a few other people in there as well, down in Wales. Quite popular down in Wales, but we've got that Celtic connection, and they've got the hatred as well, Scott. The Welsh have it too. Yeah, definitely.
And Rose in the chat. I've noticed you, Rose. Don't think I hadn't seen you, Rose. I know you always joked in the chat about me being Scottish, but actually I do have Scottish in me. You know, my mom's maiden name, McClure, part of the McClure clan.
And I went to school with somebody by that same name, so yeah, big time. Yeah,
it don't get any more Scottish than that.
Well, that 23andMe, aren't they the one that is owned by the wife or the sister of somebody who owns or heads up Google?
You know, I don't know.
I'll have a look. I might be wrong. I might be wrong, but they're a big, like you say, they're big corporations behind this, Scott.
Yeah, the 23andMe, it has like a lot of weird Democratic, you know, like the Democrat Party, like ties and just weirdness. I don't know who completely, you know, like it's all tied to, but I know it's like really shady. Really, really shady. And they're not the only one. It's not just 23andMe. There's like ancestry.com. There's another DNA testing site that when you look into it, like who owns the company, it's actually the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is the Mormons.
Sergey Brin's wife.
Not
that there's anything wrong with that, Google. I'm just pointing out, I'm just saying. Just so my next conversation doesn't go too uncomfortably, Scott.
Isn't that very interesting? You know, the company that likes to collect data on everybody. Oh, we just kind of have your DNA too, on top of all that metadata.
Why the interest in the DNA? It's always puzzled me. Why the interest? And again, we go back to the symbols, right? And the dragon's really prominent in there. Obviously, all over the world, you see the dragon, Scott. And we've often talked about how me and Scott believe things that come from lore, tradition, legend, myth, call it what you will. They were born out of some factual event, and dragons, they're just everywhere, right? So we think the dragons were definitely a thing at one point. And that's quite weird. Because just before the show, we were getting into one of the stories that one of the listeners for today provided for the show. And if you were here for the earlier stream today, thank you. And how cool was it when we started to get towards the end? I went and got some of the links from some of you listeners out there. You send your links into Discord. And from that, you don't know how much it helps me. And there was a story from Max. He's better known as Black Templar in the chat room. I'm not sure if he's still there. But we were reading a story earlier, Scott, and I showed you some of it. And it was about this elaborate underground tunnel / crypt system, okay? And this place in Germany, right, there was one called the Goblin's Hole. But there was another place called Mandrake's Cave. And I said to you, Scott, I said, what on earth's name is a mandrake? And what is a mandrake, Scott?
A mandrake is a dragon.
Yeah.
And that's where my old RPG video game skills came in handy, because the mandrake is referenced a lot, and I'm also an old school D&D player.
And these caves we were talking about today, they said they were from medieval times, although they don't know who built them, which I find weird, because if you know they're from medieval times, then you should really go for the locals that were in the Bavarian region at that time. That would be a logical step, right? Either that, or you're telling me that you don't know who lived in that area in medieval times. Either way, it's mysterious, Scott. And mandrake here for people, it talks about a plant, but then remember, medieval cave system, and you come down, and it says here, Middle English. I need to be able to see it myself. I'll pull it over. Yeah, just here. Middle English alteration influenced by Drake, dragon. So yes, like Scotty said, this is a dragon cave? Is it a dragon's lair? And remember the story that we looked at, and I'll pull it up here. And I had no idea it was going to go this way, Scott, like I told you, remember? I thought it was just a cool story about underground tunnels, and I was going to add it to the ones from Scotland to Turkey. But I came to discover this is like the chasmus rabbit hole that I've been leading us towards today. Because there was another part to this story, and like I say, this quickly shifted from being like a cool story about it was a sinkhole in a farmer's field, and then all of a sudden you're discovering that there's like goblins and gnomes, and they're being spoken about in this German article like it's kind of like everyone knows there's goblins and gnomes, Scott. It's commonplace. It's weird. But then it led to the bottom of the article, and there was a second part to it. So before I get there, I'll let you have your little say here. I mean, look at this. For anyone who wasn't here, a labyrinth of vaults known as Erdstall runs underneath their property. It's at least 25 meters long and likely stems from the Middle Age. Likely stems. Nobody knows. And some believe that it was built as a dwelling for helpful goblins. I'm not making this up, folks. I am not making it up. So there's another story that appeared down the bottom here, and I'll wait for Scott to come back. I'll get his thoughts on it. And yeah, so the next part of this story, Scott, and this reminds me of you and Stull, okay? Because part 2 is called Gateways to the Underworld.
Ooh.
So your thoughts on these caves? I mean, this is the first time I'd learned about them. In the article, it calls them one of the best-kept archaeological secrets in Europe. Nobody knows who built them. Nobody wants to talk about them. And I hadn't heard about them before. And if Black Templar... Is Black Templar in the chat room? If he is, you give your thoughts and I'll try and message him. Maybe we can pull him in.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty crazy. I've never heard of these caves. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the way they just kind of, like the locals are just like, yeah, you know, these caves were goblins and elves and stuff have dwelled, like it's no big deal. Like, you know, to them, this is like common knowledge, right? That's kind of wild. These caves and sort of these, you know, goblin creatures or whatever or that are purported to have created them and dwelled in them.
Well, Paranormal Portal, our brother Brent, big shout out to you, man. He says in the chat room, yeah, gnomes and goblins and still encountered today, according to several witnesses. Yeah, and it's Brian. I think it's Brian in the chat room. A Black Templar's there. Now, Black, via Discord, if you could, I'll call you up in just a moment. If you want, we'll go over the story first with Scott, and then I'll give you a call if that's okay with you, Max. That'd be great. And we've done this before, Scott, so I know it works. So this is going to be cool, man.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about connecting to the network.
We just
on TFRs.
Yeah, we just bring in Max via Discord. I call him, and away we go.
Yep. You know what this also reminds me of? Once again, I'm gonna have to go back to it because this is the second story that all of a sudden this kind of reminds me of the Anukin in Alaska. Weren't the Anukin supposed to be like these gnome-like creatures that lived in the mountains? And
Scott, you've talked a lot about this kind of theory. Now, we've never called them goblins, we've never called them gnomes, but when you start to get into the dimensions of these labyrinths, that's the only way you can describe them, dude. It's not for people like you and me. Well, it might be for somebody like me, but only because I laugh about my size. I'm quite small. This is not for your average-sized German. Germans are pretty big people. That's what, unless the DNA took a right splicing somewhere. I don't know, Scott, but...
And the openings to these caves look very similar to kind of like
The Hobbit.
Yeah, like the Hobbit, right? Exactly. Like like Tolkien, you know, and Lord of the Rings, and we always kind of go back to the Lord of the Rings, and it makes me, I mean, even you know, Joe Joseph is like, dude, Lord of the Rings was real, you know, in a certain aspect. You know, at one point the Earth was much different, and there were a whole bunch of different types of creatures and entities and humanoids that had dwelled on this planet. So I mean, is it really any stretch of the imagination to think that some kind of gnome-like humanoid may have created this, or goblins, or some kind of subspecies of humanoid that once existed on this planet that no longer exists, or maybe it does exist, it's just extremely elusive and rare to see. Um, but I don't know. I mean, this is really wild stuff, and you know, I think we're gonna have to go back to the Anukin stuff and look at some of that, because I think it's very similar. And it also pointed out in this article, right, that you said it appeared that like nothing is in there, but the place is like really well kept, like swept clean and all of that. What if these little caves are portals?
You know, one of the
What if you go
things.
in there and maybe in the back of the cave, or there's a certain area within the cave where there's a, you know, kind of an energetic flux or something, and you just kind of bloop, you blip out, you go into the cave, and then you go to another realm or something. I don't know.
Hang on.
What does
It's
it mean?
wild
Oh,
stuff.
I'll go to the other one. I'll mute this up just now. These pesky adverts, you know. Imagine
Uh,
people putting adverts on their videos. That's just shocking stuff. Oops, oopsie. Yeah, but this is something, and I know it's not on the screen just now, folks. I'm just trying to find the bit that Max has sent me to. Um, let me see the disco again.
but this also ties
24
into the porous or cavernous Earth theory. Uh, I I'm not gonna go with like full hollow Earth,
Look at that.
but
This has got to be some of it because they're tiny. Look,
yeah, you gotta crouch down to walk through there.
dude. There's some
You
bits
see
you've
that?
got to like just like slide your body through as well.
So you would have to be a tiny, you know, it'd have to be a tiny creature, a tiny humanoid that would have to inhabit something like that.
You would think so. But what we'll do is we'll get into the second story that led on from the first one we done today, and then we're going to bring in Max. Now, if you tuned into the show the other night, Max was the amazing caller from Germany, the one that Scott's mum was listening to randomly that day as well, the Shadow Dude story. And we're going to be doing a full show with Max soon, and I think you'll want to be there for that, Scott, because we're going to be getting into some really good ancient kind of science, really interesting stuff. And I think there's
Speaking of
something.
ancient science, like this ties in because aren't dwarves in sort of the Lord of the Rings kind of lore, and you also see it represented like in Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of these tabletop games and RPGs. Dwarves were like this small statured humanoid group, but they had sort of like this engineering and technological ability, didn't they? They were able to create things. They were very they were very technological
Well,
compared to the
gypsies
other.
today, I think gypsies today, I could be wrong, but Romany gypsies, I'm sure, like if they see somebody that's a dwarf, it's like the luckiest thing ever. It's like something really kind of special. There's some kind of lore attached to it about little people, Scott. And that must come from way back in the day from somewhere. And Romanies are people that have traditionally lived off the land, you know? They sometimes get a bad rap because they move here, there, and everywhere, but they're just people the same as us. They live a different way. Who cares? Go and argue with, what you call him, Tyson Fury. The king and the gypsy king. If you've got any problem with the gypsies, that's what I say. That'll soon probably shut most people up.
Yes.
But yeah, it's weird, dude. It really is quite strange, right?
See, I think Tolkien pulled from a lot of this kind of ancient lore and a lot of these stories when he wrote Lord of the Rings. So even though it's fictional and seen as like this fantasy land sort of, this just big fantasy story, I think it's one of these things where there was a lot of kind of stuff that was pulled from different legends and stuff that inspired him to write this stuff.
Totally agree with you.
I,
Totally agree.
yeah.
And we've got 250 people here. We're about to go right down the
Awesome.
rabbit hole. Literally, you've joined us at the best of time. Thank you all for being here. But yeah, this has been inspired by one of our listeners. I always say listeners because I think it's the radio, but obviously viewers as well.
Are we going down the rabbit hole or are we going down the gnome hole?
Who knows what kind of hole we're diving down, but we're literal. We really are. People might have thought, well, come on, this title's a bit vague. And I kept it vague because myself and Scott literally don't know where we're going to go. But we literally have taken it, like we said, on the label, right down the rabbit hole. We're going to be going to Germany really soon. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read part 2 of the story, of the story. Somebody messaging, it's my mum. If it wasn't my mum, I wouldn't be checking, by the way. Hang on. Night, mum. Good night, everyone out there. 246 people. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Night, mum. Night, Pearly.
Yeah. Night, Pearl.
Yeah, see that. She'll be chuffed now. Scottish. Oh, well, that Scottish shouted my name out. She loves you, dude. She really does. She loves you to bits.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I love you too, Pearl.
So we'll go to the next story. This was part 2. And I'll do it live with all of you. I didn't even read it. I've not even dived into it, Scott. So we'll bring it up on here. Nice. Here we go. And that'll be my mum saying, she loves you too, Scott. Night, night, Scott, night. And it's sweet. That gives us some time on the delay, though. That was quite cool. Now we know how far behind the stream is, right?
Hey, it was pretty quick, actually.
Actually, pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And as I was telling Scott, we're going to have gigabyte broadband very soon with my service provider.
Oh.
So I think we'll be going out in 4K, maybe 8K at that point, Scott. Who knows?
We're going to be going out in resolutions that don't even exist yet, Kev.
Exactly. So we are going to derspiegel.com. No, it's not Der Spiegel, but it is spiegel.de. Yes, Der Spiegel. That's pretty good. That's as far as my German goes. Das ist gut, ja? And Der Spiegel.
Yeah.
Okay, then, brown chicken, brown cow. Here we go. Right. Gateways to the underworld. What? No, come here. Boom. There it is. It's loading. Here we go. So then, it says hideouts or sacred spaces, and experts baffled by mysterious underground chambers. So then, how old is the vault? The members of the task force were so eager to find an answer that they paid for pollen analysis out of their own pockets. Now, these vaults that they're talking about, folks, were discovered when a farmer, his wife, she was out and one of the cows fell down to the shoulders in a hole. The farmer came out the next day, had a look down the hole and discovered there was a passageway. That, in turn, kicked off a series of events that led to something called the Erdstall research group or research team coming and being on site, archaeologists. So they're trying to date this place. A few radiocarbon dating analyses have also been formed, and they indicate that the galleries date back to the 10th to the 13th centuries. Now, bits of charcoal recovered from the Erdstall tunnels in Hochermühl date back to the period between 950 and 1050 AD. Now, Scott, for me, when you start finding like burnt bits of charcoal, can we now rule out like wild animal hideouts and things like that if they're like burning fires?
Yeah, then that suggests some kind of intelligence.
Definitely, right? We can definitely. So it says Heinrich Kusch, a prehistorian, and that was the guy that you can see here in this video, folks. That's Heinrich there. We'll go back to the story. Heinrich Kusch, a prehistorian from the Austrian city of Graz, Graz, they've got a good football team, believes that these results are incorrect. He suspects that some of the subterranean systems, Scotty, get this, were built about 5,000 years ago. That's 5,000 years ago, in the Neolithic period. For several years now, he's been probing Austria's Steiermark region with giant drills for gateways to the underworld. But Koch's theory has lost some of its appeal. All of the radiocarbon dating analysis completed to date indicate that the tunnels were built in the Middle Ages, challenging the validity of the prevailing school of thought. Now, it holds that the tunnels were built during the migration period known as the Völkerwanderung in Germany in the 5th and 6th centuries, when entire tribes left their homes and abandoned the cemeteries of their ancestors. Now, the assumption was that the tunnels and galleries were created so that the dead could still be venerated. What do you make of that, Scott? First of all, carbon dating. It's controversial, but I still like to look at what kind of ballpark it puts us in.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Joe on this though. Like, I'm on the fence with carbon dating. I think in some cases it could be accurate, but in some cases it's not.
And if that's
It's
the
much
case,
like
if that's the case, then it's not worth doing.
exactly. It's much like your standard lie detector test, right? I mean, there's such a margin of error there that I don't think you can sit there and say that it's an accurate sort of method to use. So the carbon dating thing, I'm always like, maybe, but maybe not. I mean, there's such a big margin of error there that I don't think that you can really say that carbon dating is that accurate, or I wouldn't, that good of a method.
Jury's out. The rules in nothing,
Jury's out.
rules out nothing. Yeah, interesting. I think
Yes,
that's all we
just
can see. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So then, in fact, it could be used, right, like you say, sometimes it does get it right. And if you've got other evidence pointing to that time period, tools or whatever else they use, then again, that would help you narrow down what you're looking at then.
Yeah, you've got to also, you've got to find other sort of evidence to corroborate, to go with it in order to really sort of nail it down. But
right, back into this, it says, it is clear at any rate that they were built by professionals. They dug the tunnels in a kneeling position using wedge-shaped tools with both hands, or they were standing up and they were really small.
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to create tunnels that you can only crawl on your hands and knees through? I mean, what's the point of that? And the explanation also reminds me, the way that they try to explain this is almost like the way they try to explain those Pictish sites, where they're like, "Oh, it was just a burial ground. It was just
But we didn't find anyone buried here.
Yeah, but we didn't find any bodies, or we didn't find any evidence that people were actually buried here, right? So it's the same thing. They're saying, oh well, this is just a place for them to venerate their dead and all of that. And
as opposed to saying, listen, folks, this doesn't fit with what we thought, and we really don't know. They would rather say that no, the evidence that their own eyes are looking at is lying to them. It doesn't fit their given model. So basically, no, the people that built this were wrong. It's an anomaly. It's weird.
They're trying to use sort of mental gymnastics in order to explain away what they're looking at, right?
Scott, what kind of religion believes that when they're dead, when their family have passed, that when you inter the bodies in the ground, it mentions cemeteries, right? What religion believes that the spirit then goes into dwellings, into tunnels underground, so that they can travel with you? I don't know many religions that practice that faith of digging tunnels for, like, spirits of relatives or anything like that. Call me old-fashioned, or maybe just call me like naive. I don't know, dude. But I don't hear about that.
No, I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, that's
So
the explanation that they try and give us. Hey,
and I mean, you know, when you get done with this article, I also dropped some info in the Skype about dwarves, just the mythology behind the
cool.
dwarf in general, and we can get into that too.
Yeah, and Max, I'm sure Max is going to have some local knowledge as well to add to this. So this is going to be good.
It's Germanic mythology, so I'm sure he would have a very good take on this.
Max is a very intelligent man indeed. So it said it's clear at any rate. All right, we got that. Dug the tunnels. Every few meters, they chiseled cavities into the walls for their oil lamps. Now, they dug the longer passageways in serpentine form to reduce the pressure from the surrounding earth. Supporting planks were not used. Now, what level of knowledge did they have about underground working to even know that? So around the year 1200, allegedly, the underground labyrinths were finished and the entrances blocked with rubble. Now, the rubble contained ceramics clearly attributed to the Gothic period. The confusion over the tunnels is hardly surprising. Some believe they were used as dungeons for criminals, while others see them as places of healing, where the sick could cast off their afflictions. Still others speculate that they were used by druids. Now, I like the idea of the sick thing, and I'll tell you why. Because there are some pictures of these, and we will get to them. But there was one that Max sent me. It was in one of the thumbnails. And you can only describe this, Scott. It's like a really precisely measured, almost machine-like tunnel, dead skinny. And Max had put beside it CERN, right? Now, it got me thinking about shows I used to do with James Swagger. And James Swagger would look at these ancient sites, and he wouldn't talk about CERN or particles per se, but what he would talk about was sound waves and vibration. Yes. And if you get a standing wave, or if you get a frequency going, then perhaps the sick could have been taken down there. We've got that Rife character, radionics, that used frequencies to cure things. There could be something to that. It's on the table for me.
Yeah, using cymatics and frequencies and all of that stuff. You shape these tunnels and you shape these caverns and caves in a certain way to where the acoustics bounce off, and it has these effects. Hell, even Christopher Everard, he went to the pyramid and was doing the basically like the Tibetan chants down there, the om, and he said that there was some weird stuff going on down there in the pyramid whenever you start applying acoustics. So I think that is definitely on the table. I think a lot of these ancient cultures, or these ancient
wasn't that part of even the mystery sciences, Scott? Because
it was.
Yeah, look at how the Masons, when they were building the Gothic cathedrals and the grand palaces and things, there was always like that whispering corner, the acoustics where you could speak in one part of the building, nobody could hear it, but then if you were at a certain place, it would be like amplified, and their knowledge of acoustics is crazy.
See, I believe that like the acoustics and the whole sort of frequency thing, I think that is one of the main sort of occulted knowledge things that have been hidden from us.
It's like that story about the fifth force of nature that they think they found, Scott. I think we don't understand vibration and frequency enough. And if we did, that would be, that would start to explain everything.
And now all of a sudden you're starting to see stories, mainstream science stories come out going, oh, look, now we're having augmented reality because they're acoustically levitating particles, and you can interact with these AR holographic, things that actually have mass to them. And now all of a sudden acoustic levitation and frequency and all of that stuff, it's all kind of coming back to us now. But it's always been there, but it's like we're rediscovering it.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. That's what they say,
No.
right? And again, it's weird. It's ironic because we think we're at the cutting edge of science, doing what Scott said there. Yet you go back to Tibet, like Scott was talking about, and I remember coast to coast. Could be true, might not be. But you look into acoustic levitation, and Scott's talking about really cool kind of VR stuff. But I remember hearing somebody on Coast talking about how the Tibetan monks, they kind of gathered around, it was almost like a bowl, and it focused the chants and the trumpets that they had. And they were levitating things, not small objects, folks, but levitating things up
And
mountains, you know? It could be bogus, Scott, but I think there's something to that.
look in the Bible, the walls of Jericho.
Yep.
Destroyed by sound acoustics, basically.
Yep. You break step when you're going across a bridge because too many soldiers in a rhythmic step can build up that frequency that can everything, all the molecules start going at that same frequency too, and that's when you get things moving about. Weird. Cool. But back to this. This is good stuff, man. This is good. So as a result of the international cooperation of the Erdstall Working Group, new clues have come to light. The galleries are also concentrated in parts of Ireland and Scotland. In Ireland and in Scotland. And there are also clusters in central France. Now, the distribution bears intriguing parallels to the routes of the Irish-Scottish travelling monks who, coming from the Celtic north in the 6th century, travelled across the continent as missionaries. The tattooed monks made the passage to the continent from the islands, carrying long staffs and wearing coarse habits. The legendary Killian, born in Ireland around 640 AD, preached in the southern German city of Wurzburg, and according to hagiography, or hagiography, I don't know, angry natives killed him and buried him in a stable. Now, St. Gall died 640 AD and made it as far as Lake Constance. It's Lothar. Oh, he's loving you, dude.
Hear me screaming when he'll have Scott's baby.
Oh, he's having your baby, man. We're getting some brown chicken, brown cow from Lothar, ladies and gents. Oh, yeah.
Dang, Lothar. Okay, all right.
Feeling the love, man.
Feeling the love.
We get royal telegrams. We've got Lothar declaring love, offering you babies. Dude, come on. Only on the Kev Baker show.
Should I go full disturbing? I mean,
yeah,
is it ma'am?
Hang on. Do it, Scott. Show him, like, Lothar, you might want to reconsider, or perhaps you're going to be entirely convinced that you might want to go down this route. Scott, are you a moth man, or are you a moth ma'am?
I'm a moth ma'am.
Damn, dude. He's a moth ma'am. No, he's a moth man. But now
I don't know what happened there.
Are you going to be the moth ma'am? Me did it. See, that's disturbing, dude. What are the chat rooms saying? What are they saying? Scotty the hottie, Polly's first up, dude. Yep. It's getting weird in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
You see, we identify. We're cool, Scott. We're kind of good like that. People say we're toxic. Who knew?
Keep an eye out, people. I'm gonna be joining the women's team soon. Blowing all the women out.
I think you should, dude. I think you should. Here we go. Right, let's get back into it, and we'll get Lothar on. We'll get into Scott's dwarfs. This is so cool. Alborn speculates that these early Christian missionaries also brought along heathen ideas, the remnants of Druid scholarship. Or
Heathens!
Heathens, a lot of them burn them. Special Celtic concepts of the afterlife, which led to the construction of the subterranean galleries. Now, perhaps the tunnels were also prisons for demons, evil dwarves, and the undead. This just gets better. Some galleries contain traces, in buildings of remnants of doors or locks. Now, a sandstone relief was found in an erdstall, and that's the type of tunnel, folks. The style of the tunnel is called erdstall at Bosenruten, near the town of Lindow on Lake Constance. Now, it depicts a goblin with a tail attached to its rump. Yes, indeed. Brown chicken, brown cow. I wonder if it was all a fluffy tail. Where the gallery's temples for the superstitious, hiding from bandits. So not everyone finds these spiritual interpretations convincing. Joseph Weichenberger can only shake his head when he hears them. He is talking himself into a rage. He's triggered as he speeds from the Bavarian city of Passau toward Waldviertel region in Lower Austria. The cult theories are completely erroneous. He then offers his interpretation. The Erdstall galleries were simply hiding places. Now, Scott, let's face it, let's be logical. They could be. And to dig tunnels where you were crouched down, although very uncomfortable and impractical, very quick, as a half the time than building the full thing. I don't know. It could. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not saying it is, but it's on the table again, right?
Oh yes, I mean yeah. Okay, let's look. We'll throw a little bit of just
brainstorm it.
Thinking.
Yeah, we'll brainstorm it, man.
Okay, good example. The tunnels that the VC built during the Vietnam War.
Yeah,
they were very small tunnels.
Great shout.
Yeah, if you needed to do something in a hurry and you needed to create escape tunnels, say like for to get away from an opposing force, then maybe something.
Shawshank Redemption.
Redemption. Yeah, okay, that's on the table. Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
great movie.
It is a good movie. So there are some instances where, okay, yeah, you could see that probably a tunnel may be built like that in a hurry, just in order to, for an escape route or something like that. But I don't know. What I think we're seeing here is we're seeing later people repurposing these old things that they've came across. Right, so
old being the key word, I think.
Yes. So while the mainstream sort of explanation for this is, well, look, it's dated back to the Middle Ages, and we're seeing signs that there's these rocks and there's these things there that date back to that time period. Well, that's because those people found it, and then they brought their own things there, and these are the things that you're finding. They're basing their results off of the later inhabitants of these much older structures. They're just repurposing it. There probably was many groups who came across these tunnels and utilized them in different ways. But the question is, who were the ones that originally created them? That is the question.
I was saying earlier on, Scott, when you read the bit about how they filled in the entrances, almost like broke up all the crap they had, filled it in, right? Does that not have like echoes of Göbekli Tepe?
I was thinking this. Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Could the people that fled from Göbekli Tepe, they put their monuments underground? Where did they go? Did they go underground into tunnels too? You see?
And isn't there an entire sort of underground tunnel system that was built that I think what they said, like 200,000 people inhabited somewhere? I want to say Turkey.
It was between Scotland. What says here they don't reach? Oh, hang on. Here's one. Going underground. These are Erstal tunnels it's talking about, folks. So hang on. Yeah, evidence of the tunnels has been found under hundreds of Neolithic settlements, and so many tunnels have survived after 12,000 years. 12,000 years, Scott. That takes us to Göbekli Tepe time.
Yeah, see. But there was also like an underground city that they had found
Okay, hang
that
on.
was just completely made of tunnels and yeah, I want to say it's Turkey that it's in, but yes, that's the place, I believe.
Incredible underground city in Turkey. Now remember, think of Europe, folks. We've been talking about Bavaria, Germany, Austria, France as well. That came into it. I know you go a little bit east and south and you come into the Turkey neck of the woods, right? Towards the Middle East. Could they have some Templar connections? I think the Templars might have used them at one point, perhaps. I think the Templars built them. Maybe. Although I think they go back to an earlier time. I do think we're going back to a civilization that has been lost, that people like Graham Hancock and Robert Bouval say were probably responsible for or around the time of the building of the pyramid, and it wasn't when we were told. It again was about 11,000 years ago. There's something weird going on, but this is quite cool, so just a little bit of this. These stunning images, look at that. Wow. And again, very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
Look how precise
Yeah, I don't know
the
if you've ever seen
carvings are.
this, man.
I mean, look how precise the carvings are. I mean, they're so smooth. Do you think this sounds weird? Do you think they've done it with sound, Scott? Like Oak Island, right? Oak Island, they use a drill, which is radio frequencies that breaks up the ground that is then scooped out. Radio frequencies. Sound waves, folks. That's what they use. Could that be what they were using for these things? I mean, look at them. Look how smooth they're finished and things.
Dude, it's crazy. I think they were utilizing some sort of technology
Now
that we've
they're
lost.
bigger, Scott. They're bigger. Look, they're standing up.
Yeah, they are bigger.
Look at that.
But still, they the mainstream explanation for all of this, I think they say that the people who lived in these in this underground city, this underground network of caves, and I mean, because it was a whole like living area, they were living underground. They're saying, well, they were escaping some kind of a enemy, like an invading force, and so they were forced to live underground or something. And I don't buy that.
Look at the precision of that hole.
Yeah,
That's not something that was just forced underground, cowering and hiding from some invading force.
There you go. It says heavy stone doors close from the inside to fend off intruders. I don't think that's what they were down there for. I think this was built by an ancient civilization in order to weather the
cataclysm.
The cataclysm, yes, that took place. That's what I believe. See, they say it was thought to be built during the Byzantine era, but nah, I don't think so.
The key word in that, thought. Thought.
Yes, thought. So, and once again, they're like, oh, well, we think it was probably created around the Middle Ages or that time frame. But
this is what it's talking about here as well. Look, armed with hatchets. According to Weissenberger, the galleries in his native Austria were built during the medieval clearing period in the 11th century. And at that time, settlers from Bavaria travelled down the Danube to cultivate land in the east, armed with machetes. Sounds like a typical day in the UK. They cut swathes into the wilderness. It was not an entirely safe undertaking. Magyars flooded into the area around 1042, and around 1700, the Hungarian rebels known as the Kuraks, with the backing of the Ottoman Turks, ransacked the countryside. Robbers also posed a threat in the region. They raided remote villages. I'm not buying that the locals were the ones that built tunnels all the way under Europe because of this. Now, again, he's been very specific, perhaps, maybe. I don't know. Do you think, Scott, that they built things as elaborate as we were looking at? Just to hide away from, like, how long were the bandits there? I mean, come on. It's like,
See, it's the same explanation of the underground stuff in Turkey, right? They're like, well, they were just hiding from people and all of it. No, it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
well, here's one here, right? After 4 hours on the road, we approached the Clenwettle fortified church. The ruins once included a drawbridge and a circular rampart. As churches go, it must have been a veritable fortress. Now, there is also a system of passageways directly beneath the church, and when he surveyed it last November, Weichenberger determined that it was 62 metres long. The entrance is under the granite cobblestones in the sanctuary, and a special permit is needed to enter the dim vault because of the danger of collapse. Now, at first, we make our way through a muddy, serpentine passageway, and the tunnel gradually becomes narrower. A water leak has transformed the rear section into a mud pit, and water drips from the ceiling. The thought of the heavy church columns resting on the ground above is terrifying. No wonder. It's certainly a little uncomfortable here, Weichenberger admits, but the people are desperate to stay alive, or were desperate. No, so to substantiate his theory, Weichenberger even hazarded a survival experiment. He and 2 colleagues were locked into an Erdstall for 48 hours. Now, the oxygen monitors were soon bleeping, and the candles they had brought along started flickering oddly. The men dozed away, and whenever breathing became too difficult, they crawled out of the tunnels. The test was a success, but what does it prove? Quote, some galleries were indeed used as hiding places, but only much later, says Alborn, promptly dismissing his rival's theory. Now, they were also used as toilets and refuse pits. Austrian spelunker Edith Bednarik is also certain that the convoluted grottos would not have been used as a hiding place. She offers several arguments to support her case. For one, there are hardly any larger chambers there where the people could have stayed. The galleries have no emergency exits. Yeah, they were really caring about health and safety back in the day. Medieval times, Scott. Everyone, we can't stay in there. We can't hide there, dude. There's no fire escape.
Yeah, this place doesn't meet to building code, safety code.
What do you mean there's only 2 types of toilets? Surely we can share. Yes, indeed. The woke cavemen, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone knows the cavemen were woke, right? The men, they stayed at home with the skirts on, and it was the women that went out with the clubs. Or at least that's probably what they'll have us believe very, very soon. So it says here, Austrian spelunker. What is that? What's a spelunker? I take it that's like some kind of a translation that really didn't work. Who knows, eh? Edith Bednarik. That sounds like a real name, but that's not, I don't know. It's also certain that they got that emergency exits, and if there were a fire, they would have become deadly traps. Besides, the smallest tunnels were too narrow for pregnant women. Why don't you then think to yourself, so if it wasn't designed for the most, precious of the population, somebody carrying a newborn, a soon-to-be newborn, and back then, Scott, that would be vital for survival, right, with plagues and marauding barbarians coming across your land. Somebody's having a baby, you want to look after them. I think they might have built the tunnels for somebody the size of a pregnant lady. Dare say it, if you want the fat lady to sing, you need to build the tunnel big enough for her, right?
Yeah, or how about this? Maybe the tunnels were made for small people who didn't inhale as much oxygen and weren't as large as a
Maybe not breathing oxygen at all, Scott. Maybe they don't breathe oxygen.
Oh. Hey, and you know what this also ties into, Kev? The legends of the Anasazi and the ant people, or the star, or the star people, or that they called the ant people, right? And didn't the legend of that say that they were told to go underground, an underground city,
Yep.
and because that there was a cataclysm coming, and that they needed to get underground, and
a cyclical cataclysm, and because it's cyclical, that'll mean it'll come back at some other time. And again, we shouldn't really read too much into DARPA holding the subterranean challenge and looking for underground bunkers where they can like do tests and run things like a moment's notice, like they done a few months ago. Remember that? Just saying, folks. You know, you've got even my beloved Elon Musk, who I put up there right beside Greta Thunberg as one of my saviors of the planet. I really do. I mean, even he's drilling the hell out of the planet. It's like Swiss cheese down there. And all of these underground bunkers and things like that. This is how it all went down before, you know. This is how it all went down. When they all disappear, like little cockroaches down their little bloody holes, we'll all be left here. Telling you, Scott.
It's almost like we're all repeating something all over again. We're just now finding the acoustic technology. We're reaching this high pinnacle. All of a sudden, we're wanting to go underground.
We're talking literally about becoming gods, because we're about to create beings that are artificially intelligent to a level that we can't even comprehend. Do you think maybe we're hitting that part in the simulation, Scott, where reset, error correcting code kicks in? Too close. It's like I said to Brendan Drackler the other night. We were theorizing. We were going out there, literally. What would happen when you got to the event horizon and go through a black hole? Here's a cat that builds a simulation. He's coding a simulation of two black holes going together, right? And we're talking about that. And again, there's something in us, Scott. There's something almost in our ancestral DNA and things where this kind of thing, it resonates with us. There's some kind of ancestral knowledge going on. And we're coming back to that point. We literally are coming back to the point where we're figuring out the matrix. We're figuring out reality. We can almost crack consciousness. The thing that makes us literally us. I think we're hitting that point. Reset. Error correction code.
So, I think so. We seem to be going through these cycles where we hit a pinnacle and then boom, reset. Hit a pinnacle, reset. Hit a pinnacle, reset. You know, and you got to wonder: is it the simulation running through again? Is there like a point to where like whoever is running the simulation, the creator, if you will, is waiting for that simulation to run just perfect? You know, and you've got to go through all of these different scenarios. You've got to go through all of the different variables and play them out.
Yeah, and we never know what that perfect is. We don't know what it's trying to achieve.
Exactly.
It could be like teaching a blue chicken to speak and conquer space travel. And wait a minute, are we nearly there, dude? There's blue chickens flying about in space. We're nearly there.
It's almost like simulation runs and it's like, damn it, you guys screwed up. Restart. You guys screwed up. Restart.
Same as black holes. I remember where I was going now. I said to Brendan, I bet you, right, just as you're approaching it, the first time it would happen, something would go wrong. End of. Mission done, right? Didn't make it. Next time you go through it again. Pilot has a heart attack. Couldn't make it, right? Something's always going to go wrong, Scott, when it comes around a black hole. Because that's where you start to see the laws of physics, the laws of the simulation breaking down. And we were just speculating, but it's almost as if, like, when the simulation knows, i.e., that you're about to glitch it, or in this case, you've run through another cycle and we haven't achieved, said goal, something corrects it, restarts it, go again.
Time to go again, different variables. Slightly different variables, and let's see how it plays out. What's the end goal?
And that explains why
And
the pyramids go backwards instead of forwards. The oldest pyramid is the best one. Well, that's crap then. How does that work? You should get better over time. Unless you were copying the perfect and you can never quite get it right.
yes, whenever those ancient Egyptians, the first, or those people stepped out into the sands. Well, even who's to say that there was even sands at the time, right? In that area.
Let's bring Max in.
When,
Will we bring Max in, Scott? Or we're going to be talking all night. This could go on forever. It could.
yeah,
I'm going to have to
we're
call
in some
him.
deep. We're in some deep convo with this, dude.
There's like deep
and
rabbit holes.
We still got the dwarf stuff too.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. I want to learn more about these tunnels. There he is. Max, how you doing, man? Now, Max, I can't see your little thing lighting up. Oh, try again.
Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
We're doing great.
How are you doing, Max?
Great, brother. We're doing great. Now, I'm just going to wait to see if the chat room heard you out there.
Does it work now?
Yes, it does work. I hear you. You're loud and clear, sir. I'm just waiting for the chat room.
I'm doing absolutely fine.
What have you started? What have you started, man? You started this today. You sent me literally down a rabbit hole. And dude, this is some really interesting woo that you have stumbled upon here. So can we hear him? Can everyone in the chat room, can we hear Max? There he goes.
As I was anyway looking.
You're good to go. You're good to go, Max. You talk away. Talk to us about these tunnels. What's going on, man?
Into all that stuff regarding our yeah, okay, those tunnels, yeah, of course. So I was okay, I'm still hearing myself in the headset. 1 second.
I'm not sure. You sound all right here. I think you sound all right
now.
How's that now?
I think now it's working. You still hear me, Kev?
Yes, I hear you fine, brother. We've got a super chat. Hold on.
Guten Tag, Max.
Guten Tag, Max from Lothar.
Come on.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now I hear you, yes.
There we go, I hear you.
I was kinda getting like a double signal of my own voice and your voice and the stream and so on. I think that's just my sound card playing a little bit of tricks on me, but now it should work.
You sound perfect. So tell me, Max, and again, a big welcome from everyone. 273 people watching right now. And yeah, you sent me some of these links to the Erdstall tunnels. Now, talk to us about these tunnels, because these things, it talks about goblins, it talks about gnomes. You're in Bavaria. What's it all about?
So first of all, as we already heard, those Erdstalls or soul chambers and what they are called sometimes in colloquial language like the Schwarzerlöcher, which means gnome holes, basically. There's different versions of them. Mainly two, you could say. The ones that the article you read talks about, that's the more or less quite primitive stuff we got. These are mainly earthen chambers that weren't, for most part, kind of like hammered out of rock, but that were more or less, by whatever means, very precisely and in that small dimension, kind of like, yeah, dug into the ground somehow. And we're still, nobody knows what they were good for. Now speculation goes from, of course, that hiding place theme, which is, at least in my eyes, absolutely incredible, incredulous, because take a grown man or even more grown-up children or pregnant women and all that, you won't manage to hide them in there safely. Next part is you usually see inside those chambers absolutely no signs of any regular use. No animals were kept in there, usually no lights were burned in there, no fires, no food, no nothing nothing stored inside. What you would call like an emergency kit or so. What you would expect, and if they were like the regular ritual places, what you would expect would be to see some kind of sacrifices, or maybe goods or important stuff you gave to the dead people to take on with them to the afterlife or something like that. I mean,
And
if you have
Max,
a look at Charles,
I would expect to see almost like cave paintings with religious kind of symbols
yeah,
as well.
these caves are completely unadorned. It's really
Now,
inexplicable
tell me, dude,
so far.
because they look really, really smooth. Now, myself and Scott were speculating, okay, pure speculation, but we watch Oak Island and they use a drill on there. It's a really special drill because they use radio frequency, basically
Okay, so
sound waves. And I was wondering, do you think it was built with sound?
That would perhaps be a way to do it, because if you have a look at the stuff that I sent you in the Discord.
Okay, I'll get it right now.
So far, you haven't seen the really weird stuff that's going on.
Okay.
Because all we were talking about mainly were some of those more or less compared to the other stuff, very simple earthen chambers, or maybe also some stuff that was sooner or later, in part at least, turned into cellars of farmhouses and so on. But there's way more weird stuff. So just hit up the stuff from the current live stream materials.
Okay, I'm in there right now.
First, have a look at. Just come up with the first link, that Axel Burkhardt.
Okay. I'll bring that up here. 2 seconds. I'll bring it on the screen.
I'll bring it up on my screen as well, so I can read along and maybe also translate some of the stuff on fly for you, because it's in German.
Yeah, it's German. So if you translate that would be awesome, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So that blog is written by Axel Burkhardt. He's one of those authors who's also into all the paranormal and pre-flood stuff and so on, ancient aliens and so on. And the title reads, Miraculous Glowing Stones, the Earth Stall in Steiermark, Europe. And okay, of course he asks in the last bit of the headline, where they built in Atlantis. So we have those mysterious Erdstalls and installations in the Steiermark. They were built, and now hold your breath, somewhere around 8,000 to 14,000 years ago. I mean,
get in there. That's
the article in the Spiegel. That article was from the year 2011. I mean, that's already 8 years ago, and there's been a lot of developments with that phenomenon of the earth stars and soul chambers. So basically, the leading expert on all that stuff is Dr. Heinrich Kusch and his wife. They also, in the meantime, have written several books, and he's also doing lectures around Germany. However, for bringing up some research results and also theories that fit to those results that in no way are acceptable to the established scientific.
Now, in that opening paragraph,
Max,
in that opening paragraph, I can see that it says 11,000. Is that 11,000 years ago?
11,000 years ago. Yep.
Oh, I give up. I give up. I concede. Scott, that takes us to where? Göbekli Tepe.
Pre-flood.
Yep, pre-flood time.
Yes.
Yep. This is cool, dude. Great. Let's get into it. What else are they saying? Look at that stone.
Okay, so some of these underground installations have the shape of ring structures. So basically like a tunnel made in the shape of a ring with an entrance.
Oh, man.
You see further down on
I see it. Yeah, I see the...
If you scroll down just... Yeah, exactly, that one.
Yep.
That's a smaller one. That's the installation that is said to be 11,000 years old. and in large parts it was filled with quartz sand. And as we know, quartz sand mainly consists of silicium, that mineral that also computer chips and all that stuff is made from, and that is regarded in some esoteric circles and some occult doctrine as a seat of mind and spirit.
Now, for people who haven't heard you before, Max, and we don't need to get any depth into it, but when it comes to talking about the esoteric, you're somebody that's pretty knowledgeable on that stuff. I just want the listeners out there, or the viewers, sorry, to appreciate that you know what you're talking about when you're talking about that kind of thing.
At least I got what I'd call like my own subjective understanding or knowledge, because in the end everybody will have to find his own version of reality as he wants to see it.
Very
I can't
well
speak
put, sir.
from an objective standpoint, like it's proven fact, especially when it comes into the realms of the occult or the esoteric. It's all up to personal experience.
Yep.
In large parts, at least. So, of course, they draw the comparison to the modern installations like CERN and so on.
Yep.
And Dr. Heinrich Kusch came to the conclusion that especially this ring structure and also some of the other more advanced caves he found that were really drilled into massive stone, that they must have had a function like either a portal, an energy generator, or, as there are so many of them, and you even find remnants, for example, inside the forests, where you do have like hollow pathways that form perfect circles, as if they once were a ring structure that has caved in and overgrown.
You know, I'm thinking there when you were saying that, but Scott, if you think about this as well, the water, you've got that kind of...
yeah, maybe the flood.
Yeah,
And,
but you've also got that crystalline quartz quality to the stone, Scott. You've got rushing water going around that in a circle. That friction could be, you know, you mentioned an energy generator there, Max.
Yeah, or maybe even some sort of ancient high-tech travel system, like a teleporter or interdimensional connection between places on Earth.
And Scott, I know you want to jump in here at this point as well, and then I'll give it back to you, Max, and you can take over and tell us more about this place.
Well, I mean, we look at this shape, right? And this starts to get into stuff like toroidal fields and things like that, right? This is definitely a shape that you see commonly being used within that kind of a field of energy creation, and also we got to look back at some of these crazy things like the bell, right? The bell that was created by the bad guys in World War II.
That bell resembles in large parts Indian Vimanas.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, in the Vermont. And how was that thing powered? It was supposed to be Mercury being spun in a circle, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what the Vedic texts talk about.
Yeah, it is. And so to see these stones or these crystals, you know, these carved in that shape, suggests to me that, you know, we're looking at some kind of energy, you know, creation or energy generation, energy fields being created out of it. So very interesting stuff.
And I mean, as far as the notorious spell goes, remember Kecksburg incident, that object that crashed down in Kecksburg? I mean, they even built a kind of like small monument or statue of that object to commemorate that event. It looks exactly like the bell.
Yeah, I'm looking at it there. Wow.
Oh my God.
What do you? What do you think where all the technology went? It didn't disappear. it was rediscovered and dabbled with it, and somehow it made its way to the Soviet Union. It made its way to the United States. I mean, look at Mr.
It's
Hans
okay.
Kammler.
It's okay.
the
It's
SS
okay,
general.
Max. It's okay, Max.
Yeah, I
NASA
mean, we
NASA
could,
has
we could
promised me back
yeah,
in
sure.
2005
We'll,
that this was a Soviet satellite. They never lied to us, Max.
And you know what's also interesting with the shape. The, you see the shape very commonly, like I call it the acorn shape or the pine cone shape, but this is also the shape that you see being held by like the carvings of the Anunnaki. They're holding this thing that looks like a pine cone or something in their hand. This is a very common thing, and it's very interesting, very interesting to see this always popping up in places.
Look at the shape and design of ancient Asian and Indian temples.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yep.
look like Russian. It doesn't look like Russian markings on it either. Oh,
So,
wow.
But I'd say for the moment, let's stick to our Erdstals.
Yes.
Because it's gonna get even stranger. So if you scroll down in the article
Okay.
a little bit,
I'm looking at the stones
you'll
now.
see some tunnel. Yeah, those stones also seem to play a role. They are mainly like what you find all over Europe, those menhir stones, but they have a hole drilled through them, or maybe even two holes, and they seem to have a connection, at least locally, to those ring structures.
Wow. Now we've got two tunnels side by side here as well. Yeah.
And now we are getting into the more sophisticated tunnel systems. If you look at that tunnel, yeah, exactly, a little bit further down. Yeah, here we go. That picture that's coming up right now.
Yeah.
That's been carved out of stone. I mean,
look how smooth it is. I mean, it's unbelievable.
That's what the tunnels inside that 11,000-year-old structure look like. I mean,
wow. Now, could water going through there, Scott? And we're no geologists, or but could water going across the rock leave it that smooth way if it was over time?
No, it wouldn't leave. It wouldn't leave the floor smooth like that because it would gouge a canal. It would gouge. Yeah, it wouldn't leave it smooth like that. I mean, to me, it almost looks like a perfectly flat concrete floor that's been smoothed out. You know what I mean? So, we're not talking about water erosion or anything like that because water will just keep digging in, and so you would see more of a V shape, as opposed to something just perfectly flat like that. So no, I mean we're talking about a level of engineering here that is far beyond what they're telling us.
Mm-hmm. And if you go up almost to the beginning of the article,
okay,
you'll see a picture of a stone.
Yeah, I see it there.
Of that blue glowing stone.
It's amazing. What the heck is going on there?
Yeah, a bit down. This stone, and even as far as I know, 2 or 3 others were found by Dr. Kush inside one of the really, really large cave systems. And as soon as they took them out of the rotting wooden boxes they found them in, these stones started to glow in that eerie blue light. And if you have a close look, you see that spot that almost looks like a hand.
Yeah, I see it at the bottom there. Oh, hang on.
These stones that glow, it reacts to touch. If you touch that stone, according to Dr. Kush, and it starts to glow, those parts where you touched won't glow, like an imprint, like an after image.
Whoa.
If you take those stones out into the sunlight, they also tried that out, as far as I know. These stones kind of like start to either go completely blow glue, or they go inert. And then also sometimes will suddenly start to glow again on their own. I mean, they really can't tell what it is that makes those stones glow.
That is amazing.
I mean, we don't know if that stuff is fake or not, because to my knowledge, there has been no scientific analysis done on that material. So we can only speculate what it might be.
You know, because this is very little known, Max, if this was some hoax, I would expect it to have been like very viral in many countries around the internet and things like that, Scott. I don't know. I'm getting a good vibe from this. What we're seeing here.
Yeah,
This is very...
the fact that this is so obscure and that like I've never heard of this, you know, and that you don't see like many people talking about this, really kind of suggests to me that this isn't a hoax, because usually a hoax is put out there to try and go as viral as possible and get as many people to latch onto it. But this is just like
happened onto that by chance, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for family lore about the Schratzenlöcher and also one of those more primitive soul chambers found close to the place where my father comes from. So it was talk inside the family, and also part of my family, more far off relatives, they have farmland.
Ooh.
In the northeast of Bavaria, and my grandmother was always telling me stories when I was young, how scared she and her sisters and brothers were when they had to herd cattle at a certain location of the farmland. Because on that farmland there was kind of like small, what would you call it? Like a small depression in the ground and a small body of water. And somehow in that slight hill and that slope, there were holes leading into it. And of course, kids are curious. And they were small enough at the time, so they were sometimes trying to crawl into it when they felt really brave. And they never dared to go very deep inside because they feared cave-ins and so on, or wild animals maybe hiding in there and so yeah. And she always referred to that stuff as a Schratzenloch. However, the relative of mine who owned that farmland at the time, he became concerned, especially because of his children crawling into those caves and so on. So he simply, because he didn't know better, he simply started to fill those holes up with lots of rubble and stuff they had left over from building the farm and so on. So they basically locked it up for good. But that's how I came to know about that phenomenon already in very young years, as a kind of like scary bedtime story. And then later on, suddenly this topic re-emerges when I watch a YouTube channel of a German paranormal, so to say, investigator. He's called the Mythenmetzger or Myth Butcher in English. Yeah, and he suddenly got so big on YouTube, at least in the German-spoken part of the world, that he managed to get a deal with a production group over in the US, I think, partly, to make some documentaries now and then. And he made a documentary about half an hour long. The first part of the documentary being especially on Dr. Kusch and these Erdstahls. And I saw that and boom, it was like, oh my gosh, all the things they talked to me about in childhood.
Now, let me ask you, it mentions in the story that there's lore about goblins and gnomes.
Yeah, I'll come to that, because I've sent you a second link.
Okay, let me dive back in there. If anyone wants to join Discord,
Mystery X.
Yeah, if anyone wants to join Discord, all you've got to do is email kbsdiscord@protonmail.com. That's kbsdiscord@protonmail.com. Big shout out to Kristen, who always keeps on the ball on there. I take my eye off it, I forget. So, yeah, just email there and you'll be in. So, Mystery X, what are we going to hear?
That's the link.
Okay, let's go then. Mystery X, what's this all about?
That Discord link. So well. As soon as you
Yeah, we've got a tunnel, we've got a woman standing there, and there's an old letter.
yeah, cause on these tunnel systems there's at least some documentation available from the church, from the Catholic Church.
Oh.
Cause above those tunnels there's a huge, as far as I know, above one of those tunnel systems there's a huge monastery, and there's a second one I think with a church above it. So if you scroll down, you'll see they found a very ancient map of that tunnel system wrapped around an old cannonball, which actually led them to discovering the tunnels.
Wow.
You know, it's almost like Indiana Jones.
It sounds very much like Indiana Jones. So there's a cannonball down here?
Wait a second. Yeah, that's the map that was wrapped around a cannonball. And here you see
Okay,
again
got
one
you.
of those giant tunnels. And oh yeah, that's please
I'm
scroll
going
up
back.
a bit.
I'm going back to the map now.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm back at the map now. You talk about the map and it'll catch up.
Okay, so basically that map you see was what led to the discovery of that tunnel system. Otherwise, it would have gone unnoticed until today.
And it was wrapped around a cannonball?
Yeah, somehow.
Wow.
Don't know why or however they came across that, and they started looking. And if you scroll down, you'll get a really good picture of those artificially carved out rock tunnel.
Whoa, look at that. That's tremendous.
Wow, and it looks like the same kind of tunnel
Yeah,
that we
exactly.
saw in the
Yep,
other.
Yep, identical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually is I think it's the same tunnel, but in a
Different
the picture's
photo.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And if
Okay.
you scroll down a bit, it even gets weirder.
Okay.
Because what you see here is a little bit further down, next picture, that black and white one.
Yeah,
These are scans taken by an electron microscope.
Okay.
And the stuff they put under that electron microscope is actual material that they took as a sample from the walls of those tunnels. And what they found is, first of all, that big blob you see there, that big round shape.
Yeah.
That's stone turned glass.
Whoa. Now, you hang on now.
And inside this small, microscopically small bead of glass, you'll see a very, very tiny shaving of steel.
Yeah.
That's that upper dot.
Yeah, the arrow going to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, 11,000 years ago, how did something get to work at stone, turning it to glass and leaving fractions of steel behind?
This ties into the whole, what is it, vitrification? Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where we're looking at something melting the stone to a point to where it becomes glass.
Scott, you're talking about the heat of the sun. You're talking about something
Yeah.
nuclear. That's something nuclear going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's already been theories uttered like maybe it was some sort of laser drill that could have caused that glassification. But how did that metal piece then come to play? Or maybe was it some kind of an actually quite advanced sort
some
of
kind of
diamond
different
drill or so?
Or some kind of weld that we don't like know about. You know, something that this is bizarre.
Sure. And now if you scroll down to the next picture, it gets even bizarrer.
Oh.
Even more bizarre.
Okay.
Even more bizarre stuff coming up.
So we're looking below a town here, right?
Not a town, we are looking below a monastery.
Oh, what?
And that's what they have found so far below that monastery.
Oh, hang on a minute.
Wow.
That- my head is
I
hurting.
mean-
This is like something on Sin City or something, Scott, where you're looking at like underground, like that part of the city. What was going on here?
We're-
Look at the tunnels
we're-
going
I-
right down.
I mean,
I think
that's
we're
an-
looking at the hive under Raccoon City, man.
Oh wow!
yeah, sure. It's like it's like a rabbit hole going metropolitan.
Yeah.
Do you think then? Right, here's a question, and we're speculating, Max. But do you think these churches, or the people at least who chose to put a church or some kind of religious kind of monastery here, do you think they knew exactly what they were building on top of?
Up to a point, I think so. Because if you look at European religious architecture, they have that astounding tendency to set up their churches and chapels and cemeteries, etc. They have the tendency to set that up either above ancient heathen or pagan sites, which were used in ancient times already for pagan ritual. And those sites are also often like on the crossing point, or at least on an intersection point of ley lines.
Mm.
Don't know how they managed to do that. I mean, it's just like Highgate Cemetery, basically.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying, where it looks like they're trying to repurpose these old sites. They know that these old sites are important. They know that they
Sure.
hold some kind of energy or some kind of a power, or there's something important about it. So obviously they want to locate and place their buildings and their places of worship on top of it. That way they can try to
Yeah.
harness the energy and harness the sort of everything coming from that site. So it is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, also if you have a look at the Gothic cathedrals, they follow very, very sophisticated principles as far as angles and the relations between the angles and also the whole geometry goes.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it is said that Freemasonry basically came into existence through the construction, through the stonemasons who built those cathedrals. And it's long since supposed that the stonemasons had that secret geometrical or mathematical knowledge, like which angles to bring together, in which proportions, at which places to ensure that flow of energy. Dates back to ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
pyramids in the end,
you're right. You're totally correct on this, and that's why we have mainstream science now saying, hey, look, there's something very important about the pyramidal structure when it comes to energy flow and all of this stuff. And so, yeah, it goes back to what I was talking about. This is a lot of the occulted knowledge that's been hidden from us, the importance of the angles, the importance of the geometry, right? The sacred geometry, the mathematics, the frequencies, the acoustics, the cymatics, all of that stuff. This is like a big key. This is a big thing. Why do you think? Why do you think like symbols are so important? Right, sigils and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up at a lot of symbols, you will actually find striking similarities to what you see, for example, in cymatics.
Cymatics. Is that what you want me to pull up from the Discord server?
Maybe later on.
Well,
Perhaps
we won't stay too much longer because we've already been
sure,
on.
Because I wanted to show you some other interesting part of those tunnels. Because as we already had talked about, these tunnels were sealed off.
Yeah, that was weird.
And you can actually see some of that sealed off tunnels, what they looked like before they opened them, inside that monastery on YouTube. because there's an lecture given by Dr. Kush where he shows some of the pictures he's taken.
Is that in Discord? Yeah.
That's in the Discord, or you can also reach it from the video link in the article.
Yeah, I've seen it on the article
And
there.
it starts to get interesting from minute 24 on.
Okay, so 24. It's just coming up for 24 there.
That's where you will see the stone.
Yeah, there's glowing rocks, yeah.
Yeah, that's the glowing rock stuff. And of course, Dr. Kush talking in German, you'll also see what the stone looks like when it's inactive. Never seen anything like that before.
Is that inactive when it's just sitting there then with the yellow? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Oh, wow.
A very, very bizarre looking stone.
Isn't it? It's very different.
And they found these stones locked away in rotting wooden boxes or crates inside.
We've got to the bit now where it's glowing and you can definitely see the hand. Does this guy does this guy speak English? Because if he does, I'll get him on the show.
You could try.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
After all, he's a studied doctor.
Now we're also looking at the next one here, and it looks like there's straight lines, Max. And I know it's going to catch up on the stream in a moment, but the straight lines almost like zigzag. What's that all about?
That's also something they still wonder about. What these markings on the stone mean. It's as if it was branded.
Yeah,
so to say.
Very weird. Then you see the map.
Yeah, and if you go a little bit into the video, you'll see pictures of the entrances to the cave system before they actually broke them open.
Okay, I'm trying to find that.
Kev, I've got to throw this out here while it's in my mind.
Okay.
The markings on the stone, those lines, they look like an M.
Yeah, the Masons.
No, well, but for some reason, what popped in my head was the M cave.
Oh yeah, that M cave. Yeah, I'd think more. My mind's going to Masons because I'm convinced that they used them at some point. You know, my head's on Oak Island as well. And try to find where they opened these places. Is that it there? Maybe. Is that it there?
Wait a second. Shortly after. That's one of the locations where they found. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, that looks like where they opened it up. Like maybe there was a wall that was. Yeah.
So as far as I know, at least for those tunnel systems below the church, I mean, there's also some pictures to be found inside the video. I mean, people can look them up for themselves too. You really see that there once were doorways, but they had filled it up with brickwork.
Wow.
And tried to make it look as if there was nothing there to see. And now there's in the archives of the church, in that monastery, they found some texts describing when and why they locked up the tunnel systems. And it says that they locked up these tunnel systems somewhere, I think it was in medieval times, was it like 16th century or so ago? Because they did no longer want to have people get in contact with the blasphemous beings and otherworldly beings that tended to show up in these caves and meet with men.
So you're talking like let's lay it on the line. What you're describing is a natural Stargate.
Yeah, in the end, kind of like.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
They didn't want people going down there and contacting these basically interdimensional entities or whatever was traveling.
Perhaps they couldn't handle our atmosphere, the oxygen, the light, the radiation. It's different to where they come from. They've got a technology they can go underground.
I could also imagine that these beings coming from other dimensions or other planes of existence where you had another frequency or vibration present.
Yep.
That they couldn't be manifest outside these cave systems because these cave systems provided like the necessary fitting energy field.
Oh, dude, I've got it. You get the you get the acoustics just right. So you adjust the frequency, so you can forget the Schumann resonance. You've got another resonance chamber, and whatever it needs to be at, like cooking a chicken. If it
Yeah,
needs to
sure.
be on 250 resonance, you get it on 250 resonance. You beat that drum a bit more, get it going.
I mean, Kev, imagine you would have inside a pyramid or maybe inside one of those cave systems, you would have a choir of Tibetan monks singing in overtone.
Yep.
And starting to tune in onto a certain set frequency. I'm quite sure you could basically create a bubble of that frequency inside there, reverberating on itself, amplifying itself. Basically, like if you take a bowl of water,
Yep.
and you start to chug it from left to right until it gets into resonance, and sooner or later you'll reach that critical point where it starts to splash and turn over and.
Dude, you are blowing people's minds. Folks, remember to hit share. 274 people in here, and they're hanging off your every word, Max. This is like, talk about going down the rabbit hole, Scott. This is like...
It's really down the rabbit hole today, or?
Forget rabbits. We've got gnomes, we've got dragons, we've got interdimensional beings. This is everything, Scott.
Okay, so going back to like the dwarfs, right, in Germanic lore, they supposedly created, they were creating technology, right? They were masters of creating things and stuff. So
they were especially adept at creating very complex devices.
Very complex devices, right? So
yeah, sure.
I'm just throwing it out here. Could we be looking at dwarven caves and dwarven technology?
Why not?
I wouldn't wonder if so to say the race of dwarf or gnomes or whatever we want to call them, maybe were the ones who initially installed and set up this kind of structures. And maybe later on, those more simplified Erdstelle that we see that are basically only dug out of earth, maybe that was people later on having forgotten about the real deal, trying to recreate what they were told was some kind of divine technology.
Yep. Oh, I'm with you all the way here, dude.
I mean, there's that indigenous tribe somewhere in the, oh my gosh, where is it?
Is it the Dogon?
South Pacific or somewhere? No. They really, I guess, until today they haven't really made contact with man. And during was it the Korean War or Second World War? There was an air base of the U.S. Army nearby, and those people saw the planes come flying in. And suddenly they started off, and they do that until today, long after the forces left. They built planes out of wood, like basically just some
model planes.
Yeah, model planes, basically giant model planes, because they believed what they saw were the gods coming down to Earth. And they are hoping that the gods will sometime, sooner or later, so to say, return to them.
You also see that represented in one of the Star Trek movies, right? Where there was this civilization that hadn't had contact, and they broke the Prime Directive, and the civilization saw the Enterprise, and the next thing you know, they're like drawing the Enterprise as if it was some kind of angelic being or something that they needed to worship. It's the same kind of thing, They saw a technology that they couldn't understand, and they ended up worshiping it.
I mean, if you have a look at the Vedic texts, those Vimanas, the most famous ones, they got their own names. And as far as I know, the one that Krishna was piloting was known as Soba, Saubha, which meant, if you translated it from Sanskrit, about as much as blessed or sacred. So basically, the thing was named by people the blessed machine or the blessed vehicle.
How did you spell that again?
Saubha.
There we go. Vimana. The Great Lord of Shiva. Yeah, there is.
Or was it Shiva? Yeah, not
yeah.
Shiva, it was Shiva.
Here we go. Yeah. Look at it in the sky. Look at it. But the better ones, if you go to the actual Vimanas, this is what we're talking about here. And Scott mentioned it earlier. I think Max did as well. Looks kind of like the bell and kind of like that thing that we were looking at. And was it Kegstal?
Kegsburg.
Yeah. Vimana. How do you spell it? There it is.
Vimana.
There it is. I've got it. There it is. Yeah.
And Vimana, if you translate it, means about as much as aircraft or spacecraft. It's even used in Hindu language today. If they talk about planes, they say Vimana.
I mean, listen, folks, think about it, right? I mean, why were they drawing these diagrams and putting them in ancient religious texts, okay? Think about this. Think of what implications. Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Bella.
You the godchildren born without DNA manipulation.
There you go. Thank you. And yeah, this always blew me away, Scott, when I first heard about the Vimanas. I mean, this is a game changer. It should be a game changer in anyone's world.
Yeah, you're literally looking at the diagram of some kind of vehicle, some kind of a high-tech sort of, it's crazy. It really is. You're seeing people trying to describe a high technology that they witnessed, but it's like they can't wrap their mind around it, right? Yeah. They're like, you have to try. The only way they could describe it is kind of by their life experience, what they've experienced. They're witnessing something that is like beyond their comprehension, right? It's kind of like how they say, the natives or whatever, when they see these, ships coming from Europe and they've never seen, Europeans coming across in these boats, it's that they can't register, the kind of technology they're looking at. We're talking about the same thing. We're talking about these ancient people or, the inhabitants witnessing these craft and this high technology flying around them, and they're just like blown away by it,
Look how precise the measurements and everything are, Max. I mean, like I say, this is a game changer, and it should be for anyone the minute they come across this. It really should.
Yeah, I mean, most of the pictures you're showing right now, they are basically drawn after the written description of these devices. Because that tells you how detailed the description was. This stuff was common knowledge at the time. It wasn't something.
Yeah, that's all, and that's what I was about to say.
Are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about maybe high technology from a civilization that once existed, and then after it collapsed, after that civilization, you had maybe just a few remnants of that civilization that may have survived the cataclysm, and only a few people after the restart had that knowledge, and they were kind of given that knowledge of what once existed before, and but you had this restart that had to take place, and only bits and pieces and just little tiny fragments of information of what existed before survived.
I mean, if you look at that ancient Asian Indian stuff, they also describe a constant rivalry between the Deva and the Asura over planet Earth and the humans.
Yes.
And usually you have the Deva depicted as the good guys and the Asuras kind of like as the bad guys. But that's not, it's not that clear cut.
Would that be where you get
your imagery if you get deeper into it?
Yeah, and you have people like the religious story would say that's good and evil, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, then look at those underground installations we just looked at. We get to know that the church somehow sealed them up really, really tightly, because they did no longer want to risk contact between people
I
and beings. Something must have happened. Either because the knowledge had been lost, and when by accident the thing activated and stuff came over to visit us, it was kind of like, oh my god, let's have a look in the Bible, that must be the devil. Or it was like, okay, we know that we once had big problems, big trouble because of the knowledge we got. We don't want to have to do with that anymore.
Yeah. So I'm starting, I'm thinking a lot of these underground, like especially the underground city in Turkey and stuff. I think, these were created because there was some kind of a massive, massive battle taking place, like a nuclear war above ground, and that people needed to go underground in order to survive it, right? We look at the stories, and like you said, the Indian texts, right, like the Mahabharata and stuff.
Oh yeah, of course, that's the one about the nuclear bombs.
Yeah. They're talking about basically aerial battles, and energy weapons, nuclear warfare. It is absolutely insane stuff. And so you would imagine that if there was some kind of a huge conflict like that happening, of course people would be going underground. Of course people would be taking
Yeah,
shelter
sure.
in these underground cities and trying to ride it out. And who knows? We also talk about nuclear winter, right? Could it have created a nuclear winter that it took the Earth a long time to recover from, because just of the massive devastation created by all of this? It's a very, very, very interesting angle, I think we need to look at.
Very
I mean,
interesting.
Scotty, if you have a look at what was tried during the Cold War, when the Americans, as Russians alike, thought they could use perhaps nuclear explosions for terror shaping, like creating new giant lakes, creating new channels.
Yep.
We
Yeah,
know what that
that-
stuff is capable of, and that's just a nuclear weapon. God knows what some more advanced civilization may have had up their sleeves.
And what do we have Elon Musk talking about now? He's talking about the possibility of using nuclear weapons to melt the ice caps of Mars in order to terraform that planet. I mean,
that sounds like there's a really, really, really bad time coming for the green little man. Oh my gosh.
It is, man. I mean, but really, I mean, you bring that up, and that
sure.
is kind of the discussion that is taking place again. Using
Scotty,
nuclear weapons for terraforming.
I mean, Scotty, if you're talking about so to say civilizations or beings that are so alien to what we see as a life form, and that they're so advanced, who tells us what way their logic worked, what way their thinking was, what their morals were? Maybe they just thought like, okay, it's time to start terraforming on planet Earth. Drop the bombs.
Yeah, maybe they. Yeah, exactly.
Because
They were
we
just
were
like, huh.
basically nothing more like ants or to them. I mean, if you have a look in literature, especially early 20th century, I mean, Lovecraft, cosmic horror, all those absolutely bizarre cosmic entities, deity stuff that are basically not even aware of mankind. And when they do something, oh well, maybe they feel like when we drive over some bump in the road.
Look at the
Like,
way
oh,
we
what
look
was
at
that?
look at the way we treat our animals in experiments, Scott. You know, the minute we've learned whatever we need to learn, that's it, done. Discard.
Well, not only that. I mean, look, when we go and we say build a city, or we're going to build a building, and we're digging up the ground, and we're preparing the area to build something, are we thinking about like the anthills and the insects that are on the ground whenever we're bringing in our heavy equipment and digging everything? No, we don't even pay a second thought to it,
We
right?
just,
You know,
just
it's
built.
not even something in our mind. Yeah, I think that's what Alex is getting at here, is that
Max.
just
Max, yeah.
Max, sorry, Max.
Alex Jones, the German Alex Jones. He's gonna sell some tangy tangerine in a minute.
I knew there was an X in there. I apologize, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's what
perfect.
Max
No-
was getting
no
at.
big
You know,
deal.
is that
I mean-
they just see whatever was living on the planet as just like insects, like not a second thought,
Inferior.
and so
Yeah, sure, primitive.
yeah,
Maybe
primitive.
even so alien to them that they couldn't understand what was going on, up to a point with
Yeah.
humans.
This is probably one of the most fascinating discussions we've had on our weekend show so far, Scott. It really is.
Yeah, the woo was jacked like
To the
to
nth
level.
degree, but this is only really a taster, because I'm sure Max has got something to share just
Yeah,
before
sure,
we go.
and I hope Scotty will be there too, cause what I and Kev got kind of like brewing in the background.
No, don't, no. Give
Okay,
yourself.
I won't spill the beans.
No. I was going to say, I take no credit. I never take any credit for any of the shows I do, and you're putting together something in the background that I would love for you to share with the audience to kind of whet their appetite, because folks, I didn't know that we were going to end up getting Max on tonight, but I knew that further down the road there's going to be a show coming up that is going to blow people's minds. Now, Max, I'll let you tell people as much as you want to tell them, because you're still researching this. And Scotty, like Max said there, I second it. You have to be there for this show. So tell the listeners what you're kind of looking into right now, Max.
Basically, what I'm looking into right now ties right in with what we were talking about for the last like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Basically, it's the ancient knowledge, the ancient wisdom that seems to be contained in Tibetan and Indian scripture. And of course, also how much evidence can we find in our world that there is more than just myth to that knowledge and wisdom.
Oh, now I remember when I was doing the shows with Anthony Patch. Now, I think the name of and again, we go to the Vedics, and it was something, now I think it was called a strupa, and it was almost like a bell-shaped thing, again, almost like a dome-shaped.
Stupa.
Stupa, right?
Stupa. S-T-U-P-A.
Okay, we'll pull this up, right? Stupa. We'll take a look at this. Yeah, there it is there, right? And what myself and Anthony Patch were quite blown away by is the fact that doesn't that look very much like the roof of a reactor cooler on a nuclear plant?
When you talk about reactor coolers, I think I got one more up my sleeve for tonight.
Oh, I'll bring it up on the screen here. Sorry, folks. I thought you were seeing that there. Hang on, is that coming up on the screen? Is that coming up, Scott? No, it's not, is it? Hang on. I can get it back. We'll get it back. Hang on. Let's take it away. Right, and we'll bring it back. 2 seconds, folks. I'll be there. Window capture. We go. I'm on the wrong one. That's what it is. Here we go. Amateur mistake, Scott. Amateur mistake. Where are we? Window capture. Yep. There we go. There we go, folks. There we go. It's coming. It's coming. Oh. See, no worries. No worries. Where are we? There we go. We'll make it smaller now. Cut that bit off. There we we go. These are the stupas that I'm talking about. And like I say, when you look at the roof of these places, I don't know, there was something very similar to what you see on. It was this one here I was looking at to start with. That one there. It's almost like that roof, the dome you get on like the cooling kind of place, Scott, in some of them. You'd have to go back and look at the shows I've done with Patch. They were awesome. It really, and again, credit goes to Anthony for that. He was the one that dug that up. I made some cool graphics for it, but that was about it. But yeah, talk to us, Max, before we wrap up tonight about something along these lines I think you've got up your sleeve.
So if you have a look at the current live stream materials,
okay,
I just
there now.
dropped you another link, and this one is very mysterious. Most of what is known about it is basically hearsay and rumor, but the local legends are so strong about the reality of these mysterious valley
beautiful
of copper
website.
cauldrons.
Beautiful website, Mysterious Universe. Myself and Scott, we mine this website as much as whoever built those tunnels mined the earth.
And I think it ties right in with who we are talking about all the time moment. It just ties right in with all that ancient high tech.
Okay, right. Let me read this. Mysterious cauldrons in the Siberian Valley of Death, still unsolved. I'm hooked. A story popped up this week concerning a region of Siberia whose Russian name means Valley of Death, and the mysterious partially submerged metal cauldrons alleged to be seen there that have defied explanation and have been attributed to aliens. Are they some kind of warning or protection system? Could these be related to the mysterious Siberian craters? What do you think, Max?
Yeah, well, those Siberian copper structures, if they really exist, I mean, the Yakutian tribes in the area, they don't go there because they say this is taboo area. If you go there, you'll be harmed or very, very likely end up dead. Because they say gods installed that stuff ages ago, and this stuff is basically in standby. And once every while, when danger comes to planet Earth, that stuff activates like a planetary defense system. There's even claims that was what shot down that Tunguska meteorite or whatever it was. So,
Scott, wait a minute.
if you go through the text, I think it will talk about all of that.
Wait a second. Now, I'll get to that. And Scott, I see you. You're absolutely beside yourself here. What's going on, man?
Whoa! When you were scrolling through that video, boom. Now, haven't I been talking about these mysterious patches of areas and forests where nothing grows and you have this anomalous activity?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on there.
Yes, and was it the Bakchu forest in
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Hungary? Yeah, and so they've went in there. They get these anomalous sort of radiation readings. People get sick. Cameras and go ahead, Max.
There's even accounts of mutated vegetation.
Yes.
And there's even stories from the Yakutian of having met or at least encountered very strange creatures that wouldn't fit the usual wildlife around, but would rather fit in with what we call a cryptoid.
I'll tell you, if I get hit with any more woo tonight, I might actually start getting aroused here, Scott, if it gets any more woo filled. I'm telling you, man.
It's getting wild, man. And I mean, are we talking about these ancient energy like production facilities? I mean, like you said, Kev, I don't want to go as far as saying like ancient nuclear reactors, but
but
Are we
shielded.
looking at
But something quite
Yeah,
like it.
Yeah,
something very similar? We're talking about these ancient sort of energy production facilities of some kind, and
almost like if you cast your mind back, almost. I think the best way to picture this is like some kind of Star Wars or Star Trek reality. Honestly, we're looking maybe at some planetary defense system, like Max was saying, Tunguska.
So-
Who knows?
and so let's project this out. Let's look at our current civilization right now, right? We have these nuclear reactors spread out across the planet, right? If something happens and they melt down, or someone just abandons them or whatever, thousands of years from now, wouldn't it be a safe bet that if somebody stumbled upon one of these
Yeah, they're
facilities,
going to be underground. They're going to be forests without any like trees growing, and then 10 feet underground, there's going to be like something that used to be on a coastline.
yeah, and the half-life of all of this, it's still going to be radioactive, right? They're still going to be picking up anomalous radioactive readings. People are probably still going to be getting sick if they're around the area. So I mean, if you just look at it from that perspective, then who's to say that these areas aren't these like energy?
Scott, 11,000 years from now, there's a couple of cats sitting on their version of the internet, and they're talking about anomalous things around our current nuclear plants. That's crazy,
Exactly.
dude. That's crazy.
Exactly.
And all that's happening at once because we're in a quantum universe. But let me read on here. Let me get there because we need to wrap up real soon, folks. This is one of these streams we're going to look back on. And, you know, it's going to take some beating. It is. But I want to thank everyone who's hung out here. It says the video refers to an expedition, possibly in 2013, to the Valley of Death. More about that later. Led by scientist Mikhail Visok to investigate alleged giant metal cauldrons. For some reason, my brain went to it doesn't matter. Whose existence has been claimed in local folk tales. The area was warm enough that the cauldrons were said to be partially submerged in marshes. Whilst the report gives great detail on the makeup of the team, 3 geologists, an astrophysicist, 1 mechanical engineer, and 3 research assistants, there was less on the metal objects that they found. Submerged in small pools 2 to 3 feet deep, metallic sounding when walked on, smooth with sharp points on the outer edges, and they somehow neglected to take pictures. Now, there was a reference to another expedition to possibly cut into the metal, but no later reports can be found, and I offer to you, ladies and gentlemen, that there was pictures taken. Only we didn't get to see them. And if you're ever looking for the kind of scenario where you really do get a visit from the Men in Black, I would imagine it's when you start going poking around something like this. And it says, according to earlier reports, the folklore of the cauldrons date back to the formation of the Ululu, Sherkachev, or the Valley of Death some 800 years ago by a cataclysmic event like the Tunguska meteorite in 1908. Stories of fireballs, explosions, and scorched earth sound like a similar meteorite impact. It does. Now, were the metal cauldrons already there? That's where a mix of folk tales starts. An early report of a copper cauldron with only the top exposed dates back to 1853, but the most popular ones are about nomads who found similar metal ones in 1930 and later who used them to get out of the winter cold until they became sick from them. What made them sick? Could be radiation, could be methane, could be aliens. A popular explanation for the cauldrons is that they are meteorite protection bunker system installed by aliens for humans in this area of high meteorite and possibly even hostile aliens area. Well, they call them aliens, but perhaps we're the aliens and they were the ones that came here or they were from here originally. This all sounds promising, it says. and it would be if there were some pictures of these cauldrons. Unfortunately, all that exists are a few simple drawings of underground dwellings. The reasons given for not being able to see them now is that they've sunk under the permafrost, and well, that sounds like nuclear stuff melting down. And only Earth-covered domes are visible. You mean like the one we put over Chernobyl?
If I may interrupt you, Kev.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Permafrost ground. The way it works, when it's winter, that permafrost ground is frozen rock solid.
Yeah.
As soon as it turns warm in summer, it turns into a swamp. So each year, when summer comes,
Sinks every
this
year.
complete area turns into a swamp. Stuff sinks deeper.
Got
So
you.
it's quite possible that that stuff is in the meantime, so to say, sunken down below surface level.
Yeah, the freezing comes in, it stops it moving, and then it goes again.
And we are talking about a time when the Earth's climate was probably much different, right? So it might not have even been permafrost at the time. It might not have even had that swampy sort of, type of climate at the time that they were built. So, got to think of it from that aspect
Very interesting, yeah. So it says here, which leads us to the Siberian holes. Now, the most popular scientific, non-alien explanation for these craters is that they're the result of explosions caused by pingos, underground methane bubbles covered by a frozen dirt plug that explode or collapse when the permafrost melts or the methane is ignited. And that's very reasonable. I get that. I can go with that. The pre-crater pingos could be dirt-covered metal cauldrons to those with limited experience and vivid imaginations. I'm open to both. Now, where does that leave us today? We have the Valley of Death in an area with a history of destructive meteorites. We have videos of researchers in swamps allegedly standing on metallic roofs of underground cauldrons, and we have ancient folk tales mixed with modern ones. We have drawings but no photographs. The mysterious cauldrons of Siberia's Death Valley are still a mystery waiting to be solved. Max, I love you. You've given me the Erdstals, these tunnels. You've given me, and Scott, this woo here as well. And folks, I think this has been, for me personally, this has been a highlight in the recent streaming. Max has really come and taken it to a next level. Myself and Scott, I think we were already heading for a stream that would have really, really taken it to the next level. But Max, I have to thank you, man. Because
thank you, cause without the Kev Baker show, there would never ever have been the occasion for me to present all you people with that stuff.
No, honestly, dude, this is next level stuff, and it's because of people like you. I'm putting an extra effort. Because I'm putting in the extra effort, there seems to be more people coming, becoming members of the channel, really, really making good connections in the chat room. The chat room here is something else, Scott. I don't know if you go through many live streams, Scott, but there's something weird, and I suppose most streamers say this, but you literally see friendships being formed in this chat room. It's strange. Usually you find people either hating on the host or hating on the topics, and for the most part, everyone's having a laugh. People might disagree, but it all goes cool. I can't remember the last time we had to ban anyone.
Yeah, the chat seemed really, really, really hyped up and engaged with the stream today, and man, Max took the woo to an entirely different level. I mean, he took it into the stratosphere and beyond.
And for everyone in America, appreciate this. It's coming up for 4 a.m. where I am. What time is it where you are, Max? Because you're even ahead of me, right?
Yeah, but it's not much. About 1 hour faster.
Yeah,
so
an hour. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was 1 or 2. 1 hour.
Because it's round about 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we are talking and discussing that kind of topics,
Time just
There's
flies, my
basically
friend.
no time and space
No.
which you are aware of at that moment.
No, you're
Because
right.
You're completely taken in by the discussion, and
I think that's what really takes this level or this stream for me, Scott. This is the kind of thing I would have sat glued to on Coast to Coast or something. I'd have been wanting more and more. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to have to listen to this again. And people will think, but you were on the stream, Kev. I have probably missed more of what Max said than what he's acting, than what I remember. And that's nothing to do with Max. It's just I've got chat rooms, I've got things to think about, and I'm listening. But I know when I go back and listen again, I'll hear things that I didn't hear the first time round. And I encourage all of you to do the same out there. Share this around, put it on the forums. People are interested in this archaeology stuff. We mentioned this with Brendan Drackler the other night. He's a science guy, and his most popular podcast was with somebody talking about archaeology, pseudo-archaeology, the kind of stuff that, right out there stuff. But we go to the out there. Do you know why? Because sometimes there's a reason that they don't want you talking about this kind of thing. And when you start to find out that there's this vast tunnel, labyrinth, network, sprawling continental metropolis just beneath my feet here in Scotland, Max is over there in Germany, and if you're in Europe right now, I would hazard a guess it might be just below your feet as well, and nobody's really talking about it. Now, that in itself, Max tells me, when you're finding not much information on something and it holds what to me is so many really key bits of information here, it feels like they're hiding it for a reason. Do you know what I mean?
Kev, I may even have to add a little bit to it, because Dr. Kush, who has made all those really breaking discoveries, the glowing stones, dating the walls back to 11,000 years ago and so on. What has happened? I mean, he really isn't as popular like an Eric von Däniken, for example.
Exactly, dude.
He really isn't popular. He's only known within that small community of people who are interested, so to say, in fringe science.
Do you know who else?
And especially that high-tech part and so on.
You'll know this character though, Klaus Donner. I had Klaus Donner on the show many years ago when I was just starting out down the road in a very rough interview, very kind of amateur hour. But he's one of these alternative, they would call him an alternative archaeologist. But some of the things that he's got that really shows that things are missing from our historical story. Again, it opens up the avenues and the potential for stuff like we're talking about.
Sure, and that Dr. Heinrich Kusch, what happened? He didn't go full Monty, like getting his discoveries spammed all over the headlines of the tabloids or so. No, he stayed calm about it, just giving a few lectures on it, putting up a few videos on YouTube, showing him doing the lectures. He published, I think, 1 or 2 books on those soul chambers and Erdstalle. And as far as I know, these books do contain, as far, nothing about the glowing stone stuff and so on. And media, and of course, like so-called established scientists.
He's got a wild head of hair, man.
They came at him, giving him heavy flack. They called him a fraud. They called what he has found out or what he came up as a theory of explanation. They called it incredulous, and
they done the same. They done the same with Nikola. Yeah, they done the same with Nikola Tesla when he was doing his science as well. They tend to do that with the geniuses that are uncovering things they don't want out there. But guys, that is us. We're out of time. That's 3 hours we have been here. Scotty needs to go.
3 hours. Wow.
Yeah, and we were only going to do an hour and a half. So we've done.
It seems so short.
Yeah, I tell you, it does feel short when you're doing the show. But the minute we go off air, it'll be like, wow, all the adrenaline.
Yeah, sure. Then it comes crashing down on you.
Exactly. And then I'll really will feel like 4 a.m. But for everyone out there, a big round of applause, if you may, albeit digital ones, for Max. Absolutely amazing. Yes. Is Lizard fallen? Is she down? I don't know. Probably not. But it definitely led us up to the the opening of rabbit holes that I didn't know we were going to go down tonight, Scott.
Wow. And Kev, is it a round of applause or should it be in a very, very aggressive jazz hands?
A very aggressive jazz hands. Yeah, there you go. That keeps everyone happy, okay? That's everyone happy. I didn't want to offend anyone's sensory kind of, whatever these people call it. I don't know. I can't speak their lingo. It doesn't make sense to me. They might as well be speaking in Phoenician tongues. I'm telling you, because I'm toxic. I'm here, and it's the Kev Baker Show, and we roll differently. And like I always say to you, keep your minds open, keep looking for woo, but not to the point where the brain turns to black goo. Scotty, any last words before we go, my friend?
My mind has melted.
My mind has melted.
I haven't been through a woo session this aggressive in a long, long time.
This is up there with an Everard woo session.
This really is we've reached one of these sort of pinnacles of woo that it's going to be hard to top.
You know how else it's been really good? We've been like over 250 for way over an hour. Steady viewers. People like us, I think, just wanting to hear what the heck's coming next. This is mad. This is good, right? And of course, when I say that, it goes down to 249. Algorithm, come on, Algo. I know you're always wanting to play with me, but come on.
You want to talk about rabbit holes? How many rabbit holes did we go down tonight?
We went down the.
Oh my gosh.
Why was there strange planes over, or strange things in the skies over Washington, London? And keep an eye open, folks. If you find any reports of weirdness over Rome, bring it to the table, because that is going to fit my little prediction. And then from there, we wondered maybe the sonic boom that was attributed to a plane, maybe it was a cannonball going off, because there's rumors circulating that Lizard has fallen. Yes, Lizard has fallen. Is she? Isn't she? I don't know. But then when you start talking about these creatures in Buckingham Palace, the mind often goes to reptilians and slithery things. And from there, we slithered our way right up to these tunnels that were serpentine. Yeah, serpentine in nature, Scott. And not only that, one of them called the Mandrake Cave. And what lives in the Mandrake Cave? Queen Elizard Breath's ancestor, the dragon. I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, the completed stream. Let no algorithm ever dare say that this was going nowhere. There was no value to this. I've loved it. I hope you've loved it. Remember, keep the mind open. I know I've said it. Keep looking for woo, but not to the point where you become as crazy with me, or as crazy as me, should I say. We're out of here, boys. Let's do it. Somebody mentioned super chats. I can read through the ones we got quickly, no problem. We had Bella. She said, VGER, the godchildren born without DNA manipulation. We had Lothar. Guten Tag, Max. And then before that, we had Lothar. Hear me screaming when I go all womanly and have Scotty's baby. And we had a new member, Hippie Bookkeeper. And before that, well, that goes back into the earlier stream. We're out of here, folks. Much love to all of you, super chatters, members, everyone that tuned in. Remember, check back. I'll be back on the stream tomorrow and the Kev Baker Show. Until then, may the quest for woo be kind to you. Good night, all.